Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jim Cornette Experience. Today, AEW is going to be singing the blues after their latest off-key decision. Lots of folks are whistling Dixie on Dark Side of the Ring, and SummerSlam may need a serious tune-up. We're going to talk about all that and more, and joining me, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He only hits the notes that don't hit back. Be great, Brian Last, everybody.
Aloha, Jim. Let me roll back over here. Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again.
Roll back over. Are you confined to a wheelchair now?
Well, no, the time machine over here is on the left, so I had to kind of go over here to do this, and then to do it right, to do it the right way. But
you told me that the doctors now said if you lose 20 more pounds and get down to 600, then you your bariatric surgery.
Yeah, if only.
Is that why does everybody think you're a fat person?
I am. I'm 600 pounds and I live in the basement. And what else? My wife supports me. What else have we heard over there?
Well, yeah, we're both in the basement, even though I'm about as high as you can get. Right. I'm talking about in the house. I'm up on the top floor of the house. And instead of the basement, and you're kind of, since you got the new spread over there, you're kind of in the middle. You're not down and you're not really all the way up. You're right there in the middle. But everybody think you have a fat voice. They think you sound like Bubba Ray.
Yeah, that's the most insulting thing anyone says to me.
It's because it's New Jersey and New York insult. And that.
No, it's the difference between decency and filth. To quote Kevin Von Erich.
Well, anyway,
but for the record, if anyone needs any, fat guy voiceover work, I'm your guy. Call me.
And you also play the tuba behind the fat guy, like on Family Guy. In
fact, if the role of Tubby the Tuba is available, let me know. At least the voice of Tubby the Tuba.
You don't want to be the actual tuba itself. You'd have a lot of people slobbering all over you, blowing into you. Which you already do right now. You know, you're a big time podcasting celebrity.
See, Tubby the Tuba is one of those cartoon characters that people forget, but I knew it because my dad would use it as an insult to people. So that's how I found out who Tubby the Tuba was.
I had a close call the other day. I'll just say this at the top of the program. We'll move on. As I've mentioned to you, I don't think I've have illuminated the listeners. I'm having a window replacement project done. I got this big window in a TV room. It's actually a multiple part window. They open up on each side, and in the middle is a picture window, as Mama Cornette called them. And so it's like 5 feet by like 14 feet or whatever. And ordered them in February to get a nice new set of windows in there. Energy efficiency is what we're going for. These old ones, they were leaking the air. And I swear to God, the one day they come to start, they get this entire window assembly out, the old one. I've got a giant 5 by 14 foot hole in the wall of the TV room. And suddenly the radar indicates that these pop-up thunderstorms that were only going to be sporadic and, in various sparse places are going to be right over the top of us in like an hour. And they're hustling to get the new shit in and fucking get it sealed. And they got the new window assembly in the hole and got the wrap around it to watertight it so that they could, withstand the rain. And we got like 3 inches of rain in 45 minutes. Flooded the roads down the street from us and everything, and I did not get a drop, but it was close there for a while. Didn't get a drop inside though, but it was nerve-wracking. Just one wall of the room was about gone. That would certainly rack your nerves, wouldn't it, Brian?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, you kind of want to be there while people are doing that, and also being there is just a miserable experience because you're like, oh my God, this is happening, and I have to stand back and just hope for the best. Just really hope these guys really can do this.
Yeah, well, it's the finest company in town, but still, when pieces of the wall are coming down and you can just walk through it, you know. Speaking of walking through things, everybody could have a worse day than I had, or whoever you are out there. It could be worse. Did you hear about the flight student or the student pilot that was up in the flight with the instructor, and the instructor left? I believe it was a woman, left her to land the plane. And do you know how he left her to land the plane?
I just saw this on the news this morning. It's a popular story, I guess. It made the morning news.
I had thought that he was being a smartass, and when they said he jumped out of the plane, parachuted out, and left the student to fly the plane. To come to find out, no, he didn't have a fucking parachute. The flying instructor literally told the student, okay, you know what to do, you're fine, opened the door and jumped out of the fucking plane as his way. And he had given a lesson previously that day to someone else. So maybe that was what finally the straw that broke the camel's back. But does that sound like a lot of planning went into in a way it does, and in a way it doesn't? The planning of a suicide like that.
Well, you never, in terms of the planning of it, he may have only trained this woman to fulfill this role. Because if you really wanted to go out that way, you need a pilot. You need to find someone to fly a plane. And
well, he could have called one of his pilot friends and said, hey, Joe, let's go take. He didn't have to, like, a fucking...
Maybe they would notice that he was, hey,
rookie. What?
He's not wearing a seatbelt.
He was about to jump out of the fucking plane?
If he's not wearing a seatbelt, maybe. And, all of a sudden something, who knows? You never know.
What if they had turned the fasten seatbelt sign off?
Well, it doesn't count for them. They're the ones who control the sign.
It sounds like a very random, unplanned act. But then again, there is some element of noteworthiness to, and if he will, here's the thing, if he's going to jump out of the fucking plane, what does he care what happens to the plane after he's jumped out of it?
Well, maybe he cares about the environment. Maybe he doesn't want to hurt, crash the plane, jet fuel or whatever. Everywhere.
I think he's past the point of caring about a lot of shit at that point. If people have made him so miserable he wants to jump out of a fucking airplane, I'd be wanting to crash one on a few folks on the way out.
I don't know. Maybe he cares about what people will say about him. I don't know.
Well, right now they're saying a lot about him, and none of it's any really positive.
It's fucked up for the student. I mean, we got to focus on that for a second. This poor girl is just flying a plane with her instructor.
Well, we don't have an age. It could be, we can't, she might be 50. We don't know. So
well, we'll just say
forgive me. Poor woman.
This poor woman.
Probably not a juvenile. Under the age of 18, they wouldn't have been in that position.
I don't know. How many women in their 50s learn how to fly planes? Is this like a thing?
Well, you see on the news all the time, some 82-year-old woman says, God, I'm going to skydive.
Yeah, skydive or jump out of a plane. I started flying planes 20 years ago, and I fell in love with it.
I guarantee you there are people in their 50s that finally now have either the time or the money or don't give a shit whether they die or not and just say, I'm just going to go learn how to fly a plane. I guarantee you.
People in their 50s. I'm talking women in their 50s.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Here we go again with it. You're going to get blacklisted from some
No. They'll blame you.
Major organizations for your grammatical views. Anyhow, real quick, we got a couple of emails here lately. I want to recognize Thomas, whose mother passed away a few years ago. He was only 19 years old, but he's been listened and has listened to take his mind off, being depressed or upset or whatever. But he also wrote, P.S. Vince Russo is a bitch. So I just wanted to get that in. But Thomas, we appreciate your continued support.
Sorry for your loss, Thomas.
Sorry for your loss, but thank you for your PS. And Jonathan sent a picture of his new Pomeranian Fred, because he had his little baby Misty. He lost her some time back and vowed no more, but then he missed the pitter patter of tiny paws. I know what you mean. Now we sound like we've got Jose Greco in the fucking house with these two, but welcome Fred, and sent a picture of Fred next to his puppy kibble. The whole bag of it. The bag's bigger than Fred is. And Brian, people say that we're just horrible people over here at the program, and we're just terrible and we should be eradicated. But we're not only helping people understand pro wrestling, but we're beneficial to people's health, to the listeners' health. Have you heard about this?
Well, yeah, who's been saying this awful stuff? Just give me a name. Let's go to war.
Well, these horrible people, I can't mention them, but horrible people. You know, all the people who we tell the truth about their favorite wrestler. But we're like doctors now. We're aiding in people getting healthy. We got an email from, well, he says, if you choose to share this, and by no means am I asking you to, would you please leave my name out of it? So, unknown in Dayton, Ohio. But he said, hi, Jim, but you're on the show too, Brian. So, you know, he listens to you in between when I'm speaking, which is what he's listening for. Hi, Jim. I just wanted to thank you for doing a huge part to save my life. This past September, I saw my primary care physician and found out that my hemoglobin A1C was 11.5, which would be a daily average of 274, and my weight was 474 pounds. Now, the A1C is the average blood sugar for the past 3 months, and 11.5 is very high. Anyway, this rightly scared the shit out of me, so I decided it was time to make some changes. I got off my giant ass and started moving. And using the experience in the drive-thru for listening while walking, and probably with the Raycon earbuds so that he could, well, I guess he wasn't worried about a fucking car coming at him because he's bigger than the car. They would do damage to the fucking vehicle.
Let's not start insulting this gentleman.
Well, but he's making changes. He saw his doctor. Well, what are you laughing about? The man's trying. I'm just saying it's at 474 pounds. If he's walking at, you know, a fairly good clip, him and a VW Beetle might be a fucking Broadway. They'd go to a draw. But anyway, using the shows for listening while walking, I saw my doctor today and had an A1C of 5.5, not 11.5, but 5.5. Daily average of 111 instead of 274, and he weighs 401 pounds. A loss of 73 pounds.
Oh, wow.
I've dropped 2 t-shirt sizes, 3 short sizes, and 8 inches from my waistline. Of course, now still unknown at this point, it's a coastline, but still you're working on it. You're no longer one of the bigger countries. You're now just a little tiny banana republic. He says, I have a long way to go, but feel like I have some momentum going. And I just wanted to thank you and Brian. He mentioned you, Brian, for your part in my transformation.
Oh, well, good luck, Jelly Roll. Keep it up.
Now, he wouldn't be able to write English that good. With that good of English, he wouldn't be able to write that good of English there. That old Jelly Roll.
Now, what was this gentleman's name?
He asked not to give it.
Oh.
So I called him unknown. You call him anything you call him, Dick. Call him anything you want.
Good luck, Mr. X.
Keep Toledo.
Yeah, keep moving. Don't sit down.
Farther away. Keep going farther away from. As we'll play the fade out music for the Incredible Hulk as he walks away. Doon, ding, ding, ding. Doon, ding, 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 ding. Okay, remember when we were talking about the folks in West Faversham have bought OVW and then they damaged a referee's brain, and then we speculated what the mayor of Louisville had to do with all of this. Good God, he was a part owner at one time. And all of this continued drama with the little wrestling school that couldn't. But now I got to because one of the things that we said, Brian, when we were talking about all these things going on with OVW was we read one of the advertisements they had. They called now the Davis Arena, which was named after Danny Davis, obviously, Nightmare Danny Davis, who started the company and founded the organization and actually found that specific building that is now the Davis Arena and has been since 2002. and had it fitted out and etc. The Danny Davis Arena. We called it the new Davis Arena because the old one was a toilet in Jeffersonville. And they were advertising the Danny Davis Hot Point Arena. And remember, I said, well, you asked, I think, did they get a sponsorship? And a GE Appliance Park is just literally blocks away. It's one of the biggest employers in Louisville, and maybe they did something, whatever. I got an email from Anonymous. There's a couple of them. They're going to be anonymized. But would you like to hear how the Davis Arena got named the Danny Davis Hot Point Arena?
I would love to hear this, yes.
Oh, well, this email says, please do not use my name in my email, as my husband trained at OVW and I was at one time a worker, but thank God I got out. We live in Louisville and are big fans. We listen to the podcast together constantly, and that's something we share together. But on a recent episode, you talked about OVW's, AC issues back in 2023. This is apparently, we were talking about how did the Hot Point thing come into play? And maybe did we read something that at one point they lost their air conditioning, whatever the fuck. But this person says, I just thought it would be funny to give you the story behind that. They had to cancel shows in the summer of 2023 because there was no air conditioning. The reason was because all the copper was stolen from the HVAC unit from the lovely Tweaker Club of Butyl.
Oh, my God.
So here's the thing. Well, first of all, this is a modified warehouse, modified to be a wrestling arena. And it's a string of warehouses, not just a standalone building. They're side by side. They each have their own industrial heating and air system. I know this well because as a free perspirer, the first thing I do whenever we got to TV and started turning on those TV lights was crank the air down to 60 because I was going to sweat like a whore in church that night. But the thing is, the industrial units are behind the building. And if you're behind this particular building, you're not, especially at night, the dark, whatever, you're not going to be observed doing anything. And they've had problems here in Louisville. There are stretches of the interstate that are dark because they have taken the copper wiring out of the fucking street light poles, or however the fuck this works. And it's like a public menace because copper is apparently on the black market is worth something. Can you hear the knocking from downstairs? My window is being tapped into place.
Oh, a little bit. I thought that was my side, actually.
No. They're working on the ones in the garage now. But nevertheless, so there's copper thieves all over town. Apparently they got in there and they took the copper so they had no air conditioning. So, and Butyl, by the way, is the somewhat less than desirable suburb that is right. I don't know technically if the Davis Arena is on the line of Butyl or over across the line from Butyl or whatever, but the neighborhood has gone downhill the past 20 years. So GE, she says, Applied General Electric paid for their replacement for a sponsorship. So they got naming rights on an arena in a warehouse for giving them an air conditioner.
If you were still running OVW, do you think you would use this and have like a heel tag team, the Copper Thieves? Like, would that work in Louisville right now?
Actually,
a couple of dirty wrestlers you can't trust.
Well, here's the problem. One of the original, who shall remain nameless, I'm not trying to slander anybody, but one of the original OVW trainees from even before I came in 1999 has actually been arrested for stealing the copper from one of these fucking places.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes.
Oh,
no. And he was a person who was known as meaning very well, but not the sharpest knife in the drawer in class or whatever. But yeah, his picture was on the news. Anyway, But this person who wrote this says, again, we're huge fans, including our infant daughter. So we're bringing them up right. We're good for people's health. We're making positive changes in their lifestyles, and we're bringing people together in marriage and procreation and fornication. And
well, that's not what they said in any way. They said that they listen, and apparently their infant daughter.
You know that,
hey, have your infant daughter listen. That may not be the best.
On their first date, they were listening to you and me talk, and they got so turned on. Boom, and there you go. And 9 months later,
come on. That's ridiculous.
And they owe everything to us. You mean to tell me? I guarantee you that many of our conversations here, Brian, on this program, have caused people to breathe heavily.
I know that. I've seen the emails. You know, they come in and it's kind of nuts. And my first thought is, this can't be a woman. This can't be a woman writing this.
Hey, remember, you know what? Here, it's now that you bring this up, the Midnight Express scrapbook, which you've seen and many folks out there have seen, and it's coveted, but some of the reproductions of the fan mail or non-fan mail that I used to get back in the 80s from the 14-year-old girls who were practically writing in crayon, but using the filthiest language you've ever seen and drawing pictures of donkey dicks going into me and Bobby Eaton's mouths and sitting in here. I picked this just for you. And they've circled a place on the paper and wiped a booger in it. And just the filthiest cussing out from these innocent young schoolgirls over what we've done. It's the same thing now, but now it's 35, 40-year-old men who are offended of what, instead of me knocking Ricky and Robert for a work, I'm knocking Mason Rook and fucking the AEW marching band for a shoot. And it's the same reaction, but from people 25 years older and male.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. Those girls had to put an effort. They sent letters to the office. They had to get the address. They had to get a stamp. They had to get an envelope. They had to plan a trip to the post office or something.
They had to realize that at some point people might alert their parents of the words that they're using that I can't even say on the YouTube channel now, and talking about how that the donkey cum is going to be spread back and forth after we're butt fucked in the asses, and you mother. It was goddamn insane. Charlie McGowan would cave at the Atlanta TV. They didn't send as much mail to Crockett, to the office, as they did to the to TBS in Atlanta, right? Because that address was easier to get, and that's where all these girls from across the country were mooning over Ricky or Robert. And Charlie McGowan would come in. I had more mail than the fucking baby faces, but it was all people either threatening to kill us or telling us what goddamn horrible human beings that we are and all the things that were wrong with us and what they wanted to do to us. And but it's the same thing, but with a different age group and gender and etc. But then again, when you think it's a mirror opposite, because in the case of the 80s, again, I was working talking about their heroes, and that's why they hated me. But now I'm shooting talking about their heroes, and that's why they hate me. But this time, as I said, they're grown adults. But everybody else that gets their panties in a wad about what we say only listen to the quotes or the transcripts or you couldn't believe he said this, and then they go on to say a completely different thing than what we fucking said, and then they get mad at us.
It's interesting. It is the same reaction you would get for cheating against the Rock and Roll Express.
Yes.
It's the same reaction from an older fan base. He has to be stopped. Someone has to stop Cornette. It's not even like I hate him. It's I hate him and he has to go. We have to get rid of him.
And those fans were taking the business seriously. These fans all know that it's a work and that it's been bullshit all along. but they get more wound up about it sometimes than those people did. If it's just, it blows my mind that the things have changed, but they remain the same reaction. And these outlaw trampoline cowboys get mad because I don't take them seriously. And how can you take it seriously? But they don't take wrestling seriously. So why should I take them seriously? Everybody, I think, that gives a legitimate effort, Brian, don't we talk good about them?
Most people. There's some people you just flat out hate, and they could save burning puppies, and you.
Oh, no. Anybody saves burning puppies gets over. But no, if somebody is taking the business seriously, then I treat them seriously and critique them in a serious fashion.
I would say, for the most part, yes.
But I can't take most of these fucking guys seriously because it's a fucking clown show. And they're mad because I don't take them seriously. And their fans are mad that I don't take them seriously while they don't take the wrestling business seriously.
It's the modern style. It's the modern style. Do everything, anything, whatever you want. Screw the old people. Wait, we're old too. Screw the other old people.
It's all fucking whacked out fans. There's a lot of church ladies at the back of the PTA meeting, and wrestling fandom. There's a lot of just the fucking church lady, just that Dana Carvey character.
Yes. Dana Andrews, Dana Plato, you never know. But yes, that's why I'm sorry that I don't take most of these guys seriously because they do stupid, silly, fake things. And that's not taking wrestling seriously. So I have to laugh. What else am I going to do? You know what else I'm going to do real quick before we talk about what we're going to laugh about? Tony's out of his fucking mind. He's gumming this whole thing up. But Jim Russell, you and your lovely wife make a heck of a pizza. I got the pizza place over in Blue Springs, Missouri. It's the Kansas City area. Just look up the capital V, THE pizza place in metropolitan KC. Why were you not in business 40 years ago when I actually had to go to Kansas City? They sent me, and they don't do this normally, so don't expect this if you're just a member of the general public. But because we were talking about them and gave away a lot of their product that time without them knowing about it. And then, he wrote and thanked us for...
They honored it.
They honored it. And he thanked us for the plug. And he mentioned frozen pizza. Apparently they do sell their pizza frozen there as well, if you're in that area, but they haven't shipped it. They're not set up to ship it. But for me, he shipped a shit. And the meats is lovely. I love the sausage it's nice and crumbled, but it has a little oomph to it. And the chicken bacon Alfredo, and there's different crusts going on. And I would have eaten all of them, one right after another for dinner every night of the week, but I'm trying to save them and parse them out like you would if you were in the desert and you only had a quarter of a canteen. But if they're this good frozen, I can only imagine what the experience would be like to walk in and see not only and smell the pizza being cooked, but also the action figure of Jim Cornette on the wall that someone tweeted a picture of also the other day. So it's a very synergistic. What would make you hungrier than looking at a figure of me?
Which figure? Huh? Your figure now or your figure 25 years ago?
No, I'm at my action figure, not my goddamn, it's not a chalk outline of me on the goddamn floor.
I didn't know what was happening.
I'm trying to sell photos of me in a skinnier position now than I used to be.
And
but yeah, pizza? Great pizza.
Good pizza?
It's good. I don't know what you would think. I don't have an idea what you would think because you've got some strange thoughts there.
If it's good pizza, considering I'm more of an expert than you in pizza just because of where I grew up.
The sauce was lovely.
That counts. That's a big one.
I've already eaten two of the thin crusts. And the crust was just delectable. Stacy thought so also. It's a house-made Provel blend of cheese. Well, it's very gooey.
You see that right there is a big... That's
oh, come on. And then, as I said, the sausage has some spice to it. And there's some pepperoni involved. You can go to the pizza place online and see all the ingredients that they have in there.
I'm sure they have great stuff. I'm pulling my endorsement because if someone's going to help propel the spread of this Provel stuff, as opposed to real pizza cheese,
that's what was on. I don't know. They may have more kinds of cheeses. I'm not trying to slander them, but I'm saying on this pizza that I like that pizza or I like that cheese because it's a St. Louis style cheese and it's delicious. But you wouldn't have sausage or pepperoni.
No, pepperoni definitely not.
Bacon,
sausage. If one slipped on and it was all right, you know.
Oh. Ground sausage or tube sausage?
Sliced up tube sausage, wouldn't it?
Oh, fuck you. No.
Ground sausage? They put ground sausage on top?
You like your ground up fucking pork sausage, like that you would, like a Jimmy Dean sausage that you'd put in your sausage gravy or whatever. That's what's good on pizza.
I mean, I wouldn't eat it either way.
That's like eating a hot dog on a goddamn pizza.
I had a choice. I've been craving sausage and peppers for the last 2 weeks, so I got to do something.
The first time that I went up there and ordered a pizza up there in the Northeast of the United States and ordered sausage and it came and it was sliced on I thought they'd sliced hot dogs on my goddamn pizza. I'd never seen that before.
Have you had pizza in Louisville your entire life?
No, they didn't have pizza in Louisville my entire life. Don't you realize how old I am? There literally was not. I remember when I was like 8, 9, or 10 that my cousin Larry met this guy through work or whatever that owned a place called Mario's Pizza here in town at the time, and it was a sit-down restaurant, and that was the newfangled thing in town. And we went there that's the first time I'd ever seen a pizza when I was like 9 years old. Pizza Hut wasn't here at that point. So, but the answer to your question is sausage is fucking sausage. That would be the kind of sausage that would always be on pizza is good old ground up sausage, not goddamn smoked sausage links. That's a completely different fucking thing.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm not thinking of, I don't know exactly what you're saying, but back to another thing there. When did you first have pizza delivery in Louisville?
Oh, good Lord. I don't imagine that anybody does. Well, now pizza delivery in Louisville is one thing. Pizza delivery here at this particular location is another thing. And I was surprised to find out when I returned home to Louisville in 1999 that there was a pizza place that actually delivered here. There was a couple of them, as a matter of fact. But when I left in 82, no, when I was a kid, if my mom and dad went out and left me with a babysitter, they would fucking call a cab and go over and pick up a bag of fucking Jerry's J-Boys and have that brought over. That's how fucking delivery was in those days.
Yeah, we had it a little different here in the Northeast.
Yeah, but nevertheless, you've got strange ideas about your sausage on your pizza. Now, is smoked sausage like a barbecue smoked sausage
I don't want
at the Rendezvous or in Memphis or something like that? Now, that's a great thing. Or a big old fucking Johnsonville andouille sausage, but it's a complete. Then you've got to have the mac and cheese on the side so that the cheese coats the meat.
It has to be Italian sausage. That's the
no. I'm talking about if you're cooking that as sausage to eat like a link sausage. But if it's a link sausage on pizza, that just is just ridiculous.
All right, this has been Pizza Talk, sponsored by the pizza place, who don't pay us for sponsorship. This is really going well.
Well, I'll tell you. Speaking of things that didn't go well, let's talk about AEW. Why don't we? Hold on. I've got to zip ahead on my pages here. I keep my pages numbered for just such an occasion. This episode of AEW proves once again that Tony ought to be sued for malpractice. They had the story in front of them. And I could only imagine if they'd have told a clear and concise picture for the last 6 months, how they might be doing, since they might be squeaking up over 30,000 tickets for this 100,000 seat Wembley Stadium show they got coming up. But if they'd have told a clear picture for 6 months and people had anticipated it with MJF and Ospreay, because they were handed the premise. Ospreay, the top young, fiery whippersnapper babyface, legitimately everybody knows is real, has to have surgery, may never wrestle again. They could have put that doubt in people's minds easily based on everything. And then he makes a miraculous recovery. But can he be the old Will Ospreay of the glory years? Can he go back to the top? And instead of the first night that he came back, beating him and dropping him on his head, probably, I think, multiple times, and then the second night, having the doctor just say, no, he can't take anymore. You have him come back and fight from underneath as a babyface against all these various different heels that people are not supposed to like to begin with, so you don't split your audience. And he comes from behind and underneath in every case and wins fairly decisively, depending on the name of the heel, giving the guy an out. But at the same time, every time that somebody tries to drop him on his head, he foils it. So the neck is still untested. Meanwhile, MJF came back and won the goddamn title. And then he should have gone on a reign of terror, which, if you think about it, Brian, what action does MJF always take that gets the most heat in his matches? When he puts the table back under the ring or sweeps the thumbtacks out of the ring, right? They hate that because the AEW faithful want a freak show. So take advantage of that. MJF wins the world titles, and now I'm calling the shots. Nobody's going to mess with Tony's world title. We're not going to have this wallowing in the muck and mire. I'm a real wrestler. I'm a ratings. The whole thing he says, every world title match of which he will only wrestle on the premium live events or a TV show once in a while if he's paid a large cash bonus. But all of his world title matches to restore the honor and credibility of wrestling have to follow the rules. And because we've seen he not only can have good matches in the ring, but the people will buy them if they're with the right people. He and Punk had a great fucking match at a mega goddamn buy rate. But nevertheless, let him in the world title picture deprive these goofballs that want to laugh at the business of seeing their goddamn improvised explosive devices and various comedy falderall and have matches and beat by regular heel fuckery instead of furniture or goddamn flamethrowers, a succession of top baby faces that the people fucking like. And then when you establish that from both guys' parts, then a couple of months before Wembley Stadium, that's when you bring them together. And that's when, for whatever reason, MJF is able to get the drop on Ospreay and fucking drop him on his head. and the neck is in jeopardy, and then you cart him out, and then Ospreay begins not only the rehab, but the promos on a week-to-week basis, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. I'm going to be back. I'm going to be stronger than ever, and I'm going to take that title, and I'm going to out-wrestle you to do it. And they go to he comes back. You can juice that up and do the last-minute angles, and they go to the match at Wembley Stadium. And they have a goddamn classic match, and fucking Ospreay beats him after surviving another assault on the neck. How difficult would that have been to do? Are you there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, what to say to that. That's the road that a lot of people, including us, have thought that they were going to go on. They started setting up something with Ospreay and Omega a while back. It's been playing out in front of our eyes. They did this here. I don't want to spoil the review that's coming a little bit later. And now we have Omega and Ospreay. They've already sold, close to 30,000 tickets. And Ospreay versus Omega may excite that fan base more than MJF and Ospreay right now. Obviously, there's a lot of fans who think Adam Page is going to play into this somehow because he has a stipulation they have to figure out how to get him away from, where he can't challenge for the title. But I think for the AEW fan, and they had a hot crowd. For an outdoor show, they had a hot crowd.
In more ways than one.
Yeah, quite literally. The wrestlers looked like they were sweating their asses off. MJF did specifically, but that was a long match. But I think those fans are really excited about that.
Why?
I mean, I can't imagine at this point. I think the fans would be more mad if Tony changed it again before Wembley. And
well, that's what I'm afraid of. Is now are we going to see a three-way? For fuck's sake, you never know what he'll do next. But it's ruined anyway. But I'm sorry.
What? I mean, it's weird. I mean, what feels like the bigger story to you right now? Not like what we like or what's booked well, but what feels like the bigger story? Will Ospreay going for the world title? Or will Ospreay eventually turning on or being turned on by Moxley? Like, what's the bigger story right now? The title run or the Death Riders thing playing out with Ospreay?
Well, to me, it would be winning a title because the thing with actually maybe like it's none pushed. Of the above.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's pushed as much.
But because here's the thing. Who gives a shit when Ospreay eventually turns on Moxley or vice versa or whatever the case? Because he willingly put himself in that position. He's willingly stood there and been talked to like a fucking dipshit. It didn't make any sense from the beginning. Why would he need this fucking training to do all of this when they're all marks for themselves and they've all got to interject all this goddamn dramatic subtension. And the point you made about, I'm sorry, but why? Kenny, as when we get to the review of this match, Jesus H. Christ, if they liked him before, why do they want to see him now? To a shell of his former self. But you've got two baby faces that are just going to go out and have a goddamn goofy ass fucking gymnastics routine of a match and play video game characters instead of establishing Ospreay as somebody that took the belt back from the biggest menace that had faced AEW that people could believe in, and not this drunken fucking mope-faced bum Moxley that just wanders around the fucking parking lot.
See, I think to a segment of their fans, and specifically the person booking the show, the bigger story is Ospreay getting the title as kind of a passing of the torch from Omega, who was the previous guy who broke his body in half in Japan, and they came here.
That's so what. Why would you want to beat the icon of instead of beating an evil son of a bitch that had pissed at everybody's goddamn post toasties? This is why it's so limited to this audience that wants to laugh at silly stunts.
It is interesting with Omega. I've noticed this for a little while now. Every time I watch him wrestle, I do have the thought, like, is this his last match? Because it just seems
I always have that hope.
No, but I'm serious. Like, it just seems like, I don't know. I'm going to turn it on while I'm out there and do the best I can. But man, this is going to hurt. Man, this is all going to really hurt. And it is.
Well, yes. Well, anyway, they opened with Kenny. And there's that fucking Michael Nakazawa still. What in God's name are they still paying him to do? That he's still standing around.
He's Kenny's assistant, for real.
They just got to all hire their friends. So he did a promo here, and to be honest, it was more serious and less breathy than normal. He still had to list all the outlaw groups that he'd worked for and his history, but if it's all coming to an end, if MJF beat him, he'll congratulate him for a job well done, but you don't have what it takes. It wasn't really as milk-soppish as normal, but he still did the wah, bang, good night, and sweet dreams, Mr. and Mrs. America, whatever the fuck.
Other than the ouvroir, I actually thought it was one of his better promos.
It was shorter. It was to the point, and it was trying to actually be serious for once. So maybe that's about the best it's going to get, probably. But then the main event, he's in the main event, which is still to come. We got to go chronologically because the first match I actually wanted to see, and then the more of it that I saw, the less of it I wanted to see. Tommaso Ciampa and Chris Jericho.
Just Jericho.
Oh, God damn it. I don't just Joe or just Chris or whatever his name is. Mr. Irvine. Again, I've always been a fan of Ciampa's work. He's never been at a place where they would actually feature him without him having to do indie stunt show shit. They didn't appreciate him in, NXT, whatever, because they put him with that fucking same-faced dwarf. But nevertheless, he looks good. He's got a different style he can work. And Jericho is smart to the business enough to not do dangerous shit too many times in the course of a match, or if it's dangerous, only to the guy he's doing it to. So he doesn't have the full-on outlaw matches. So, okay. But I swear to God, as Ciampa makes his entrance and then goes back to the stage and hides behind the palm trees, waiting for Jericho to make his entrance, because they were a hot crowd, as we said, in more ways than one, because it was like some kind of outdoor pavilion. It looked like they were in a parking lot under a tent in Clearwater. And there's no walls to the thing. But they've got, and I mean, they spent the bare minimum. Have you ever seen a bare minimum of plastic beach furniture and some fake palm trees on the entranceway to indicate beach break?
I think it kind of looked like the old WCW Beach Blast. That kind of.
At least they're Adirondack. See, I pronounced that. Adirondack chairs were made out of some type of balsa wood instead of fucking plastic. Because
Target doesn't have balsa wood chairs.
That's why they went to fucking Walmart. As Tommaso is hiding behind the trees waiting for Jericho comes out through the people to the ring and then comes up from behind Ciampa down the ramp and suplexes him on the plastic beach chairs that just snapped under him, cut his leg, and then picked up one of them, and he not only working through it on him like he was using a real arena chair, and he working through it on him, but the thing bounced off of him. You could tell it weighed like 8 ounces, and he just like hitting him with a fucking birthday balloon. And then they rang the bell to get in the ring. And at first it was kind of a good old-fashioned spot show match, not too fast, not too hard. I think it's hot out there, I'm thinking. And then Jericho Death Valley drivered him on the apron. And then they stayed on the floor forever. And Ciampa gave Jericho a face buster on the stairs, so Jericho got color. So he is full on now, demonstrating to Tony how much he's going to put this younger generation over. And really, how old is Tommaso? 42. He's really
younger generation.
Yeah, he's grayer than Granny Clampett, but still, but he's putting people over now. See, he's reformed. He went to reform school, learned how to be reformed. But they were trying to have, at some points in this, a bloody grudge match in an atmosphere that kind of looked like the Clinton County Fair. And Jericho got up on the top rope, and not the middle rope, but he was standing on the top rope because they had to do the thing they were going to do. But he's trying to give the 10 punches, but he's on the top rope. He can't put any oomph in the punches because he's barely balanced. So even the people were like 6, 7, 8. They weren't really sure, what. And then Tommaso picked him up and gave him his finish off the top, which looked tremendous. 2 count. I'm like, what the fuck? And then fucking, and I couldn't understand why that wasn't the finish with where they were going. It would have been great, but nevertheless, they threw then a bunch of chops. And Tommaso went to use a bucket of sand in front of the referee. But the referee just took it, and Jericho referee didn't take it. Jericho hit the code breaker on him and fucking threw the sand up in the hair or whatever the fuck. 2 count. And then Tommaso went for a knee, but Jericho got the walls, and Tommaso reached back and threw sand in Jericho's eyes and hit the knee. 1, 2, 3. But then Tommaso hit Jericho over the head with a metal chair, which was actually the best looking thing of the whole match. Nice shot, safe.
Oh, yeah.
Etc.
And then explain to me what Tommaso was going to do.
Exactly. And then he went under the ring and pulled out a tool bag and got a power drill and started spinning it and going, he's going to do a prefrontal lobotomy the hard way, apparently, on fucking Jericho with a power drill, and security floods in. And so basically, he beat Chris Jericho. Tommaso Ciampa beat Chris Jericho 1, 2, 3 on television. And that would have been great, except 90 seconds later, he had ruined it by doing this bullshit. And everybody's like, oh, fuck. And I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. He got a win. He didn't need extra heat. He'd already done the fuck with the sand. That was the big enough deal. I don't think that he should have given the guy his finish off the top rope previously and got a 2 count. But nevertheless, okay with everything else. And then a power drill. In the first match on the show. But Brad, your thoughts, please.
I congratulate them. They've surpassed the screwdriver as being the stupidest weapon in AEW. But at least the screwdriver they've used, as inexplicable as it is, people have been stabbed left and right with that screwdriver. What was he going to do to Jericho? It's either He was going to drill him in the head and kill him and lobotomize him. Or he was going to drill his feet? Like, what was he going to do exactly?
Well,
After he beat him.
Yeah, after he, why was he so, I beat you, I won, ha. And since he'd been in the walls when he threw the goddamn shit, he ought to be limping around anyway. But everybody's, after the bell rings, everybody's fine again, no matter what's fucking happened.
And then he tries to fucking drill through one of the inflatable things and he can't do it. So finally he just like stabs the thing with it and then turns it on to get the thing to move, but... Yeah, this was 4 1/4 stars in the Observer.
Oh no, come on.
4 1/4 stars.
He's okay with power drills now, Dave is.
Well, that was post-match. I guess that wouldn't count towards the stars. Power drills, power schlap, power town.
I think Dave is fucking spending too much time pointing at the stars, possibly howling at the moon. Anyway, our other participant in the issue that we were speaking of earlier, old Will Ostrich. That's what I'm going to start calling him again, because now he just looks like a guy wearing a robe with goofy feathers. He was in the parking lot somewhere in front of a bunch of equipment cases with Renee Moxley-Good, and he weighed in that he's pulling for Kenny. And again, I'll tell you what, in this interview, he slowed down. He played it straight. He didn't try to make jokes or laugh at his own jokes, and did a pretty good job. And then MJF came in and just trashed him verbally. I mean, MJF, he can deliver it. He can tear you down. And Ospreay answered back fairly well. Again, better than normal. Everybody was verbally on their game this evening. And then MJF spit in Ospreay's face, and they had a fight and a pull apart with security. Which, again, is one of those things that, would get over if we didn't see it constantly, including in the goddamn previous segment where the security had to pull it. Do you see the point that I'm trying to make, Brian?
I do.
And was this a different security force? How many? Because they'd only had 3 minutes after the fucking break or whatever to get reset. And after you fire a taser, do you have to recharge it or whatever for a length of time? Maybe they should get one of the quick charge gimmicks that they've got from Ridge. Anyhow, what are your thoughts on this particular matter?
I think it was fine. Ospreay's better in this kind of setting as opposed to in the ring in front of the fans on the mic, or even the MJF stuff wasn't as good as him just talking, because we've seen a lot of these segments with Ospreay having conversations with Omega or Moxley or his opponent MJF. Just casual conversations ignoring the camera. I don't like that. I thought this was all right, though.
Well, and that's another thing is Ospreay gets so fired up himself when he goes out for a live interview in the ring. He's breathing hard, and then he's fucking yelling louder, and then the voice, and you don't know the accent, and what the fuck's bruv's going on. So this is better. He sounds like he's not afflicted, let's say. The next match was Kyle Felcher and Take a Shit, and they had a belt on the line. One of the, it was it national? Was it international? Was it whatever? Kyle won. Did you watch this? I could not have cared less in the world.
Good match. Very good match.
What did Dave give it? What did Uncle Dave give it?
Hold on. Oh, you really missed one here, Jim. 4 3/4 stars. As good as 5.
All righty then. But here's what happened afterwards that I try to take notes on this, Brian, as I bring it up, and try to help me follow it, okay? And just see if you can keep track of everybody. Mick Foley came out to the ring to interview Kyle. And you could tell Mick looked like he was sweating worse than Kyle was. And that's, again, it's not a knock on Mick. Again, they were talking about the humidity and how hot it was out there and everything. I'm saying, Jesus Christ, he looks like he just worked. And as they're doing the in-ring interview, the hard camera shot was across from the stage/entranceway. So not only were there no people in the background as they're getting the hard camera shot of the one of the biggest stars in the history of the industry coming out and interviewing the fucking other guy, but when they tried to get tight on him, because of the angle, all you could see was the ramp. So it looked like they were standing in front of a gray wall. Did you notice that? That's all I couldn't. I was screaming, get off it, get off it.
I didn't even notice, no.
Oh my God. I mean, I know I'm persnickety, but because I've sat in a TV truck a lot, but good God, how did nobody figure beforehand that if we have an in-ring interview and we're hard cameras positioned here, you couldn't even see the pine trees and shit unless they pulled back so far. You couldn't tell the expression on the talent's face in the ring. Anyway, they went back and forth, and then Don said that Mick was out there trying to steal Kyle's spotlight, and Mick, he still got it. He can still talk, but on this show, it's almost because Don is a parody of a manager, and it's just parody upon parody, but he had the pictures of his old puppy dog and his new puppy dog on each one of his slippers, and he told the punchline was he was going to put one of his dogs up Don's ass, and it got the pop of the interview, because what else was there to fucking pop on? But then it started getting confusing, because then Don suddenly, out of this interview that he and his few of his guys were doing, and Mick Foley's talking to him, Don introduces Kevin Knight, who comes down the ramp with a microphone with music and everything, and knocks Kyle, who's in the goddamn group with him. Again, they're always fighting everybody. They've just turned one. And Kevin Knight wants a world title shot, but Kyle spends the whole time he's talking glaring at Kevin Knight until Andre's music plays. And he comes out and he's in that fucking 3-piece suit, that cab driver hat, and a trench coat, Brian, a trench coat at beach break. It's 100 fucking degrees with goddamn 78 point dew point. And he's in this, what the fuck?
And Shivani, I could be wrong, I could be paraphrasing, but Shivani said, Andrade's so cool.
Yes.
Like, what the fuck? What kind of commentator is that?
Not in any manner was he cool at that point. So then Andre starts gargling a promo, and he wants a world title shot, and also talking to Don and his heels in the ring, and I'm not sure which specifically. He said, and I'm going to take a belt from you. And Don says, well, if you beat Jake Doyle next week, then you'll get a shot at a belt. Is all I got. It's just, you'll get a shot at a belt.
And Mark Davis.
What belt has he got?
What belt does he have? He has one of the belts. He won one of the belts from, who did he win it from?
Okay, all right.
He is one of the champions. He had the national belt.
Yes, well, this is a highly anticipated fucking matchup, obviously. And people have been talking about it for weeks now. And Andre's thing now is to ask everybody, how'd you know? How'd you know? How'd you know the phone number to get hired by these son of bitches? So then, no, it's not over, Brian. No, the segment has only just begun to live. White lace and promises are yet to come. So the fucking, when he says, how'd you know? Well, then a bunch of the heels, but not all of them, jump out of the ring and chase Andre to the back. And now, meanwhile, I think at that point, Mick was gone, but he never actually said goodbye. He abruptly just left the party. So Mick Foley, again, one of the biggest stars in the industry, came out to interview the fucking guy that won the previous match. It has turned into a completely different thing. And people just wander out. Now they've while Don and a couple of his heels are still in the ring, Mick Foley's gone. The rest of the heels chase Andre to the back in what looked like the makeup room, where Darby appeared from nowhere and jumped on Kevin Knight. But the problem was there was still like 3 heels, so they just stopped Darby and were holding him and went to hit him with the skateboard. Either Brian Cage was going to hit him with the skateboard when the skateboard blew up in Cage's hands with sparks and smoke, and the camera pans over and there's Andre who's got the remote to the fucking pyro thing. So he blew up the skate.
From 3 feet away. He had
3 feet away. He could have just reached out and grabbed him and said, don't do that. But instead he's just timed it so he can blow him up. The motherfucker. See, you said this is why I don't take these guys seriously and they hate me, because it's a fucking joke to them, except the part about not taking themselves seriously. So then Andre jumps the heels. They're having the fight in the makeup room, and we cut back from this fight ongoing to the, I can't remember where the security came. I don't think we got security there. They were still busy breaking up the other Hey Rube and Seg 2. But the last we saw in the arena, Don and a couple of heels were in the ring, but we cut to the announcers now for an on-camera at the desk, and nobody's out there. They've all just wandered off.
Well, Jim, I think we may wander off for a moment. We'll be right back after this short commercial timeout.
All righty then. The next match on the All-Star lineup had that stellar babyface tag team of Will Ospreay and Plumber Moxley. Our friend Dick the Boozer. In the heel group that tortures the supposed top babyface who's as submissive as a fat house cat, against 2 guys. The one guy was a generic looking guy and the other guy is the fat gray-haired guy. That's
JD Drake.
Gee, it ought to be JC Drake, for Jesus Christ. What? It looks like they went to the fucking home, the memory care facility. Can we have one of your larger patients for 2 hours we'll put him in some spandex and we'll wrap him in bubble wrap and send him back. He'll never remember he was there. How old is this fucking guy? How fat is this fucking guy?
I don't have his weight, and I don't know.
How did he bring the ring? How did he get booked?
JD Drake is 5'10", according to this. This can't be the same guy. Nope, this is definitely not the same guy. This is a different guy.
Wait a minute, that's not even his name.
There's multiple JD Drakes, apparently.
No, that's not his name. It's his name's Henry. Henry something, isn't it? He's a workhorseman.
He's from Shelby, North Carolina.
Yes, he's he's old enough that he idolized Arn Anderson in the Four Horsemen, and he wants to fucking be a workhorseman because he has to work to pay for his fucking wrestling habit. I don't know what, but so what is he? 55?
Actually, I can't find his age anywhere.
I bet not.
It doesn't appear that
he's been shaving that more than he's been shaving his fucking beard.
42 years old.
Oh, bullshit. He's grayer than I am. He's also fatter than I am.
And the workhorseman is JD Drake with Anthony Henry.
There, that's the guy. That's the guy.
Sounds like a Revolutionary War gimmick.
It sounds like
Anthony Henry.
Tony Anthony with 2 first names. Anyway, Jesus H. Christ, I did not watch this. Obviously, Ospreay and Moxley win after, apparently from the time I took fast forwarding, having some difficulty in doing same, but
what do you think of the idea?
Again, the stupidest push ever with Ospreay and this guy.
Yeah, what do you think of the actual idea of they team him up with Moxley and give them a match and they give him a win? It takes a little while, considering who the opponents were and, quite frankly, where Ospreay and Moxley are on the card. It shouldn't take Hogan a long time to beat Johnny Rodz, it just shouldn't.
Java Rook maybe, but not Johnny Rodz.
Well, Java Rook was a tough competitor, as many fans read about in the magazines. But
that's I get your point. Yes, and that's the point that I'm making too. And besides that, again, Moxley is the guy who broke his fucking neck to have him have the surgery to begin with, and it just kind of a gutless, dickless bastard is he can't come back and do it on his own. He has to resort to help from the guy who broke his neck, and his friends are saying, hey, why are you doing it? Well, I know what Moxley is, but I need the help, is basically the story. I need the help.
Well, speaking of needing help, a bunch of listeners sent this over from its video released by the Wrestling Observer Figure 4 page on Facebook about this match. Because according to Dave, we don't have the ratings anymore, quarter to quarter, the breakdowns. But Dave says that's what this match was all about. Let's hear this and see what you think.
Was what driving the ratings down? What? How could?
Well, let's listen to this. Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez, Wrestling Observer Radio. Will stop it along the way.
We got Will Ospreay and Jon Moxley versus the Workhorsemen. We did not need a 15-minute Workhorseman match in the middle of the show.
It was 8 minutes.
Well, it's like the show was already 2 hours and 20 minutes. What did we need Will Ospreay selling for the Workhorsemen for in the middle of this show?
Because
we didn't need it.
Maybe you don't need anything. You don't need.
No,
anything.
Actually, we did. We needed the world.
All right, let's stop for a moment.
We need oxygen. We need oxygen, water, some type of food. We do need things.
This is multiple.
You can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need.
This is multiple times where Dave has been, I don't even think you could say confronted, but he's discussing Dynamite with Alvarez, and Alvarez hits Dave with a question about the logic or the reasoning behind something. And Dave gets so defensive that eventually it's like, nothing matters. Remember, what was that last time? I was like, booking doesn't matter. What are you talking about?
Booking doesn't matter. Nothing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and now we hear this, but let's go back.
And why do we need to see these guys selling for these schlubs?
Title match. We needed the international title match,
we
and we needed this women's gauntlet.
We didn't need the gauntlet match. We didn't need the gauntlet match. That
sets up the women's title match at the pay-per-view.
We didn't need the Jericho match. I mean, it's like whatever. It's like
the women's gauntlet was way more important than the Workhorseman match. And I like the guys. I do think they're good workers.
Well, guess what? Okay, there's 4 ratings draws in the company that are the major ratings draws right now. Okay, and that's MJF, it's Kenny Omega, it's Jon Moxley, and it's Will Ospreay. So perhaps when he's trying to put the show together, especially tonight, because obviously, one of the goals for tonight is that we do not have a World Cup game on, and we are going to try to get whatever the number is.
So this was his ratings match? Put him in there with the Rascals, or put him in there with some team that's actually been on television.
He could have put him on with them.
Yes, he could have. Thank you.
All right, let's stop it again there for a moment.
They've been on television as a team multiple times, and this is the weakest set of opponents that they've ever been given. So how would this be for ratings to have it go on that long? And people kind of probably have the opposite reaction, like, well, what the fuck? Who are these fucking? I'll check back later.
If you tuned in and saw Will Ospreay taking a beating from JD Drake, for instance, just to throw an example out there, I don't know what you would think. I don't know, but let's go back to maybe they'll explain it.
Could have, but these were the guys. Maybe he felt that the Rascals just got beat. He didn't need to put them in there with the Rascals, so he put them in with these guys. He put them in there with these guys. The match was good. Like if the match sucked, it's
God,
these guys were good. They had a good match, and like I said, it's two of the four biggest.
This blob of shit was amazing. You've never seen a blob of shit that was shaped like this and smelled like this and looked like this. It was the most beautiful blob of shit I've ever seen. It's still a blob of shit.
And if someone says you don't need that blob of shit, well, you don't need anything.
No.
What kind of fucking defense is that?
No soup for you.
Ratings draws in the company. So you're going to say like, oh, why'd you put him on? And Will's going to main event Wembley Stadium. And Moxley's going to perhaps, be in a, obviously Moxley's going to be in a big match on every single show because he always is. So you want to give him a win, give him some exposure, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's not like it was, Jake Doyle, and if Jake
actually that would have been better.
No, wouldn't
it? It's a guy that's been on television that's actually like doing something right now.
No, I'm talking about win.
All right, let me stop it again. Alvarez has become my favorite person out there. He's just sitting there waiting, and finally he gets to that moment where he can't take Dave's logic anymore, and he blows up.
But also, and Dave has gotten so insufferable with him, and he's such a douchebag about it. And I feel Alvarez would have reached through the cables of the microphones and just choke him.
And it wouldn't matter. Jake Doyle's not as big a ratings draw. Tony was going for ratings.
He's not as big a ratings draw as the workhorseman. No, I'm talking about the opponents. They could have had a better team to face.
No.
Especially if you're looking to draw ratings. No one turned this on and went, you know what? Workhorseman might win. I'm going to stick around for this one.
Nobody turned the match off with Will Ospreay in it right now. Or, John Moxley probably not either.
God.
Those are not people you turn the TV off on.
Oh, good Lord.
Well, there it is.
Come on.
We're going to turn the clip off on that.
And remember at one point when Moxley and the whole group were first running rampant, that was exactly who they were turning the TV off on.
Yeah, and we don't see the quarter hours. Now, Tony Khan does. Just because we don't think Tony Khan doesn't, he does. Whether he shares them with Dave, or whether he just tells Dave what they are, whether Dave gets them from another source, I don't know, but we're not seeing any sourced material that's saying in 2026, John Moxley has moved the numbers to any degree. But if it's there, show us. Let's see it.
Yeah. Was that it?
That was it, but
or there was no, you know what? They ought to do sound effects of like Alvarez saying, I've got a fucking club here, and then just somebody hitting a watermelon with a baseball
Everybody's
bat.
got a club. Everybody's got a club. So what? You see that? It would be infuriating.
But then you hear whop, 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 and Dave going, oh, Jesus, don't hit me. Oh, God, don't hit me again.
Ow! Ow! It would just make you madder. It would
Ow. Speaking of ow, they had a multiple person girls garbage match to determine somebody to do something against someone, and somebody won. That's what I took away from that.
I think Willow won. I'm doubting myself, but I think she won her big return. And Tekla was on commentary here. That was the highlight of the whole thing. Tekla's pretty great.
She does seem like she has a good perky attitude. But it was time for the main event of the evening, Brian, for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship, MJF and Kenny. And I said earlier, and for the people listening on YouTube, you can, if you're just hearing this as a standalone clip, you can go back and find it. Jim Cornette on how they should have booked MJF and Ospreay to Wembley Stadium. But I'm just, again, amazed that they think that the way to get anybody else to pay attention to what they're doing besides the same group, and the same group would not have been offended had they done it the other way, is to have Osprey, instead of beating the other babyface that's now washed up and probably best to have our fond memories of him, to beat the menace that took away their fucking goofy fucking garbage wrestling and restore chaos and anarchy to AEW and beat MJF and start having anything goes matches again. They could have really pulled something off with a reign of terror of having a world champion that actually had matches that stuck to the rules and beat people. For 6 months, they might have got somebody over. But nevertheless, they have this match on TV for what, and again, if they're going to make it a three-way later on, and that's just further throwing, what do they call it over across the pond, Brian, a spanner in the works instead of a wrench in the plans?
I don't know. I think it's a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush.
No. They've been shaving their bushes over there in England since at least the 90s. But you talked about when you see Kenny, you think, is this his last match? Boy, it looks like it hurts. Okay, the bell rings. They traded punches. Kenny went for a drop behind spot and fell on his ass. And MJF had to stand there and looking behind him and weeble wobbling, waiting for Kenny to come up from behind him and waist lock him for the German. Then they did a spot where Kenny went for the one-winged fairy and MJF was on top of his shoulders and both of them went over the top rope. But MJF went over. Kenny had to help boost himself over a beat afterwards, and lost his grip on everything. It fell flat of his back on a fucking floor from over the top rope. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah.
That bump?
I saw that bump, all right.
Splat. Heard the fucking thing. Anyway, I'm like, what the fuck? Is he going to make it through this? And then they went out into the fans and they did the walk fight deal down the aisle and over chairs. And the referee just went with them. Didn't count, just walked around and watched it. And they spent about 3 minutes on the fucking floor before they finally ever got back in the ring. Then, when they got in the ring, MJF got about a minute and a half of heat, and then they left the ring and went to the other side to the stage. And so that Kenny, old Twinkle Toes, is back, baby. Move over, Sinatra. Kenny had to do a backflip off of the lifeguard chair, which was the only thing on the stage, I think, constructed out of wood. And at that point, they're into the overrun. And I'm just writing, this is so bad. I'm thinking about not joining them for the overrun. But I did. And then Kenny, he did one of the huff and puff dives again. Even if you're going to do a dive, there's a way that some guys do it where it's like, fuck, I'm coming after you, motherfucker, right? He stands there and he puffs his cheeks and he fucking assumes the position like his butt plug is too firmly entrenched. And he hits the near ropes and then after he's pointing and the far ropes. And then what moron's not just going to move? And it's so theatrical and fake. Every movement, every idiosyncrasy of his looks so fucking stupid and heat-getting to me. With the skipping and the mincing and the pointing and the puffing and the blowing and the fucking sucking. Then they continued on for a while. And MJF at one point gingerly cleared off the middle of the desk. I should have known, but he went, but they did the apron tease where is Kenny going to knock him off? And finally, Kenny knocked him off the apron and he front flipped and cannonballed through the fucking announce desk. And this was one of the single best looking bumps that I've seen through anything in a long time. And again, this would have been September 1996, the In Your House Mind Games Shawn Michaels versus Mankind match in Philly at the Spectrum. That's the one where Cactus took the bump off the apron. And I don't know that he planned it that way or knew it was going to happen, but he went head first through the table and it made a hole in it because the tables weren't collapsible back then. This would have been kind of like that you could replay and would have got mileage and got people talking if you didn't see it in every television show that every company does. But they were, seconds later, they were back up having a fight on the apron with the referee fucking staring at them, and then back to the floor. And then Kenny tried to do his fireman's carry, forward roll, jump up, backflip off the railing, but he fucked up the forward roll, and instead of landing on his feet, he landed on his feet and fell over to the side. So MJF had to fucking stay in the same place until Kenny could stand up, go over there, get his balance, and do it anyway. So he didn't want to miss a flip. And then MJF gave Kenny a tombstone pile driver on a metal chair that was standing, not folded up on the ground, but standing on the floor. And at that point, I wrote, this is complete garbage. They haven't even been in the ring for 5 minutes. But after the tombstone, MJF was selling his knee. And Kenny's selling like he's a wet rag. Possibly just a limp rag. I don't know. Kenny put MJF on a turnbuckle like he was trying to fuck him from behind so that he could get him up for the one-wing ding-a-ling. But MJF did a reverse Hurricane Rana off the top on him.
This one. And
then a heat seeker, both of which looked like they could be a fucking finish anytime you would apply them. 2 count.
The reverse Hurricane Rana looked like it killed Kenny Omega. It looked like he came down straight down on his head. That looked really bad. It got me into the match more.
Well, you had hope there. Somebody's going to get rid of him one way or the other. Anyway, 2 count. So then MJF went out and got the title belt and brought it in the ring, but the referee just grabs it and takes it away and then turns his back and begins motioning for the same spot. They're doing it constantly. Somebody has to come and get the belt from the referee, and they don't. So he's just standing there with his back turned while MJF gets the ring. But as he draws back, Ospreay comes out, snatches the ring. While MJF and the referee are yelling at Ospreay, Kenny gets the belt. MJF turns around and sees Kenny, and as Kenny's swinging, MJF drops to his knees and begs, please stop. And Kenny does. He stopped the swing. He's conflicted. He wanted to do it the right way because he's a fucking milksop and he's going to forgive everything that MJF has done dirty thus far. But as he's conflicted, the referee is still yelling at Ospreay, and MJF hits Kenny with a nut shot, then grabs the belt and hits him over the head with the belt, and then covers him. Referee turns around. 1 count. A nut shot and whacking him over the head with the belt. 1 count. And then he got up and made a comeback. 3 shitty knee lifts and the one-winged fairy later. And 1, 2, 3, Kenny Omega is once again the champion of the Play Wrestling Company.
Big pop from the Play Wrestling fans.
And
of course, this now changes Wembley. You would think. I mean, there's still time. They have another pay-per-view in between.
Well, but now here's the thing. MJF is still one of the biggest fucking stars in the company, whether anybody likes it or not. And I'm not even defending him in that. I'm just saying that it's not like it's a crowded field in this company of big stars. What's he going to do on the stadium now?
MJF and Adam Page. MJF and... I don't know. You would think Moxley and Omega is like a naturally set up thing because they're both fighting for the affection of Will Ospreay. But if Omega's champion, it's him and Ospreay, which it's either, if it's not MJF, that's the only other match that I think is acceptable at this point. Unless they make Ospreay win it from Moxley, and Moxley's going to win it from Omega, but they can't do that at this point. But nothing could stop Tony.
Well, no, they can do anything at this point because they've fucked up things in the past on the last second notice. Remember when Darby Allin just got stuck in because I guess Tony wanted him to be world champion for a while because he really likes him, and he interrupted this whole thing back in January, February.
Well, that was a big match, and of course, the star rating for that match, 5.5 stars. 5.5
stars.
5.5. Hold on, I want to see, what did Dave give Punk and Sammy? Because I thought Punk and Sammy was excellent. 4.75 stars. As good as 5. As good as 5.
Yeah. You know, well, this is kind of one of those matches. It's right up Dave's alley. They didn't really need to set the ring up because they barely used it.
You know, I'll just say one last thing. I liked the last several minutes of the match. I thought it finally pulled me in. I fucking hated the beginning of the match. I feel like both of these guys, there's too much of this, like you said, walk fighting. Like, this isn't the first time I've seen these guys do this in their matches. Why? Why can't you just wrestle in the ring with the idea that a count-out exists? It doesn't help the match, unless like your idea is the more fans we get close to, the happier they'll be. I don't know what reasoning there would be.
You could even buy when they're even at ringside within the railing, at least there's somewhere around there you can kind of lose yourself in that, not pay attention to but when they're out in the fucking back of the arena for minutes at a time, well, what the fuck?
And if the referee's not counting, why not take advantage of it? Run to the fucking sea. Just run into the ocean. The referee's not counting. You could make him chase you. So I hate that. And it takes down these matches. To me. But the last few minutes were pretty hot, and the fans were really into it, and you know, it's intriguing. It's all been on free TV. You know, they have a pay-per-view, like I said, right around the corner. This could have been the main event of the pay-per-view. It wasn't. It was the main event of Clearwater. So that was AEW Dynamite.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, the thing is, Tony put off really trying to put this card together. He procrastinated is what he did. He sat around. He just, well, if I do this, if I do, you know what the word if means, don't you, Brian? As Mama Cornette used to say, if a frog had wings, he wouldn't bump his butt on the ground. That's what Mama Cornette used to say. She didn't like excuses. Not at all. And I'll tell you one thing, that's no excuse that you've got now, people out there in podcast land and around the world. Instead of sitting on your ass like a frog, well, hop on an opportunity like a frog. But at least you're hopping instead of sitting, because then your ass won't be black and blue. If you've always wanted to start your business, you've been sitting on a business idea or a plan or a scheme or a plot, possibly some type of far-ranging manifesto that you've written somewhere, but you've never had the opportunity to put into motion. Well, now's the time because Shopify.
Bad example. Let's not use the Ted.
Well,
Kaczynski.
if you've really gone to a lot of trouble to figure out a fucking way to forward in the world, then you need to let people. If you've got a song you need to sing, Brian, and you gotta sing it. And Shopify is the thing. It's going to take all those excuses that you have for not getting started and just ball them up and turn them sideways and shove them right up your customer's ass, because boy, I'll tell you what, they're going to get customers.
That's not the best example. It's a relationship.
Well, I don't want to tell people Shopify will shove things up their own asses. They won't want to do business with Shopify. But your customers will take a real reaming. I'll tell you what, they'll give you all their money.
Oh, God. That's
every
not how
penny
it works.
They've got.
That's not
well,
how
who
it works.
cares? All about getting ahead. Fuck the other guy. From the moment your first customer... From the moment your first customer is ready to pay, Shopify checkout helps more of them finish their purchase. When they come back, their details are already saved. You can see their papers. And one tap,
you can see their
and
details.
They're done.
Well, you can see they're not done with anything. You can see the details. It says
right here in the copy, one tap and they're done.
I mean, done with the process, and they can move on and complete the purchase.
If that's what you want to call it, the process, but they're done one way or the other. It's over for
just
them.
One tap? It's just one tap?
Just one, not even a double tap. Shopify is going to handle everything from setup to checkout. Folks, I'll tell you what, so you got more time to focus on growing your business. You've got more tools to help grow your business and more time to plot and plan on how to take people's money. And that's what it's all about in the end. It's good old-fashioned commerce. What can you take from the other guy? Hopefully he won't miss it until it's all gone. And then you'll hear the sound of money.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen. Again, these examples are not
from millions of businesses worldwide. That's why people are hearing their ears are ringing all the time, because every time that one of the millions of businesses that is powered by Shopify makes money, they hear that sound. Well, it sounds like, goddamn, you're in a bell tower. And folks, take it from somebody who's contemplated many times climbing to a bell tower. You need to put as much responsibility as you can into the hands of other people. Elsewise, you're going to go completely out of your mind and become some type of mindless drone, having been lobotomized in a rubber room at the puzzle factory for running your own business, now that I think about it. But it's fun. So anyway, you can get a free trial right now. And Shopify will show you what they can do for you, because with Shopify, nothing stands between your idea and a real business. So go now and make it one. Go now and procreate and multiply or fornicate or whatever it is you're supposed to go and do all over the world. Shopify.com/JCE.
What are you
for your
for you and
go make it
or whatever you're supposed to do.
You're on a quest. You're on a journey there, a quest. You're out on a mission. We're on a mission. Shopify. Shopify.com/C. You could make Mabel pants. Shopify.com/JCE. It's a free trial. What do you got to lose? Nothing. Except if you go to trial, you might lose your freedom. But this is a free trial, so you'll be okay. Shopify.com/JCE. All righty. Well, maybe that's the thing, Brian, is that a couple of these big stadium shows that both companies have coming up, they could give out some free trial tickets. Maybe it would help stimulate things. Tony may be doing better than expected, but that was only because everybody expected it to really suck. And meanwhile, old Nick Khan, the other Khan, I think they may have a turd in a punch bowl shaping up here. But let's stay on Tony's case first before we go any further. What Wembley Stadium? Where are they at, and where do you think they're going?
Well, let's talk about the facts as we have them right now, as reported by WrestleTix this morning as we are recording. AEW All in London, Sunday, August 30th, 2026, Wembley Stadium, London. Available tickets, 8,055. Current setup, 37,182. And here's the important one. Tickets distributed, 29,127.
Now, at one point, it was looking like it might be 25,000. So this is an increase. And of course, we've got the same situation, tickets distributed versus how many have actually been sold. And then also, they apparently did a half off sale here recently. And then that kind of is going to tell people if they ever do this again, well, fuck, we shouldn't buy tickets too early because they'll put them on sale. But that's what both companies are doing that these days. They're trying to see who will just say, oh, I got to be there. And then, oh, shit, we still need more people. Let's cut prices.
And I wish they didn't have the sale just so we would have an actual answer to this. But with the sale going on and the seeming direction of Omega versus Ospreay, and that I guess we can't really say for sure until it happens, they sold 1,020 tickets in one day. So it did have a result. It did do something right there.
Something.
Yeah. 1,000 tickets in a day. That's pretty good.
Well, yes.
They're over a month away. They still have time.
If I only had time. But the point being, that's their setup, is 30 whatever thousand. Wembley Stadium has 90-something thousand seats. And again, is it enough of a prestige location for the people in not only in England, but greater Europe in general, who are obviously going to be traveling because this is an event? Does that offset the extra cost of if they'd have gone to a place that seats 35 or 40,000 and filled it up or come close? But would they have done that without being in a prestige location like Wembley Stadium? Nevertheless, they could probably get close to 35 at this point. There's nothing else they can announce. No acquisition, no stipulation, whatever, that's going to be a giant mover, but they can get to 35,000, I guess, now. But this is after they skipped a year last year. And I guess, do you think that they dare try to do it? Or is Tony just going to do it again, even if it doesn't turn a profit, because he just wants to run Wembley Stadium? And if they can always put 25,000 or whatever in to shoot around it, it's okay with him.
I don't know for sure, but it's important to note the second year they ran Wembley with a smaller crowd, it actually looked better on TV. For whatever reason, they kind of had that looking great.
Well, they had the first year as a dry run to figure out where they screwed up and plug the hole.
Yeah, you'd watch the old Parade of Champions or the Cotton Bowl shows for World Class, and some of the shots, man, there's people everywhere. And then they'd go to the other side of the ring, you're like, there's no one there at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Why did they shoot it like this? Why are they exposing this? But I think I agree with you. I think they'll get at least 35, maybe more. They have over a month left. I don't know what they're doing locally in terms of promotion. I don't know what they can do. Will it be a big deal locally that a London boy or an English boy, I don't know where the hell he's from, Will Ospreay, is going to win the world title at Wembley? I don't know.
Well, but it's not like that's goddamn surprise to anybody that's predisposed to go to begin with. That they've kind of known that. It's just now the choice of the opponent is what has been in doubt. And I roll my eyes at the thought of this match.
I'm not saying it'll happen. I'm not saying it should happen. But you're asking about things that would move tickets. If they announced MJF versus Mick Foley, would that move tickets?
Yes.
To the British fans who never got to see Mick Foley.
Or just to see him one more time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it would also move somebody to try to get a conservatorship over Mick to prevent him from fucking killing himself.
It'd be a bad idea. I'm just trying to think of options on the roster that would legitimately move a large amount of tickets if it was legit and pushed.
Without having anybody taken out in an ambulance.
But again, they still have time, and the fans that are there will probably be really hot for AEW love. So we'll see where they go.
Some hot AEW love going on.
The Good Lord. Variety, yes.
Well, having said that, over on the other side of the fence, the WWE has more tickets sold for SummerSlam than AEW does for Wembley Stadium. The problem is they got 2 nights for SummerSlam, and it ain't looking good when you consider what their normal stadium crowd is for anything they've done in recent memory this far out. Can you remember lower ticket numbers 2.5 or 2 weeks and change out from a stadium
that's crazy
than this?
No. It feels like something that's been a long time coming. You don't know if this is specific to where it is in Minneapolis versus, the brand of WWE or SummerSlam. I can think of a number of reasons why people aren't buying tickets, and we could discuss them, but let's talk about the actual firm numbers right now. As reported by WrestleTix, yesterday, as we are recording, WWE SummerSlam Saturday, August 1st, 2026, 4:30 p.m., U.S. Bank Stadium, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Currently available tickets, 5,718. Available combo tickets, whatever the fuck that means, 1,748. The current setup.
That's what I was about to say.
29,535. Tickets distributed, 22,069 tickets. 22 days to go until the show as we are recording.
What size is their stadium, oh great Brian Last? The
let's see.
Minneapolis fucking Wally Carbo Memorial fucking football stadium or whatever.
Trying to see a firm number. And
because I'm convinced it's 60-something thousand at minimum.
Oh yeah, it's a big place. Probably at least 50 to 60,000. I can go double check. Last year, MetLife Stadium, night 1, 50,493 tickets distributed.
So last year, and MetLife Stadium is in Snavettsville, Jersey. Last year they had 50,000. This year, 2 weeks out or whatever, they've got 22. But again, Minneapolis
capacity 73,000.
Okay, there you go. So they're gonna, if they can get 30,000, they're gonna have 30,000 in a fucking 73,000 seat stadium. And if Tony can get 35,000, he's gonna have 35,000 in a 90,000 seat stadium. Both of them, as Mama Cornette used to say, are getting too big for their britches. I don't know how this can be a positive thing for the WWE, and it's not. I don't think it's a reflection on the talent of Punk and Rhodes is going to be a big match, and Oba and Brock's a big match, and is Brock's hometown and blah, blah, blah. I think there's something to, and then maybe there's something still to, that Vern Gagne never ran the big shows to summertime up in that part of the country because people go out to the lakes and commune with nature and have relations with deer and things. But also, is Minneapolis a tourist destination, to that level that people want to go because they're all traveling crowds now for these stadium shows especially at these ticket prices. It's not like 40 years ago when the Watts ran the Superdome and, like 3 dozen people would drive down from Baton Rouge or whatever the fuck. They're coming from everywhere. It's more expensive to go anywhere. Does Minneapolis rank as a destination a lot of people wanted to go to? Have they been turned on or turned off by the show's action or lack thereof over the recent months? It's just, it ain't happening.
I think it's a lot of things. The creative is a big issue. It seems like a company that's more interested in how they're going to come across on the behind-the-scenes bullshit show than their actual wrestling show.
Yeah.
The one that's supposed to get people interested. The creative has been lackluster. If you want to argue just at least since WrestleMania, it's been lackluster. Got a little better lately with the Sammy title win into the Cody Rhodes, or into the CM Punk match. But still, these Seth Rollins
Well, that's been the last week or two, and they're not going to make up that much lost ground that quick.
But these Seth Rollins promos, the way the vision has been used, nothing's really working great right now. And what's the big match that's going to get you to go there? The ones that we know so far, Hell in a Cell, Brock and Oba, Liv and Io, which respectfully, I don't think is going to be a draw. It'll be a nice match. It won't be
even if you like both of them. Are you going to want to go to Minneapolis?
It's not going to make you go see that. Penta, I think, has a match, and then Rollins and Roman. There's not a lot of exciting stuff. The booking's been dry for a while.
They've been resting on their laurels in terms of they think that if we book it, they will come. The big stadium shows, it's the big party of the summer, it's a gathering, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just, they've done too much. They've milked too much money, and it's not, must see at this point.
I hadn't thought about the fact that we haven't heard it in a while. But remember where, without exaggeration, for maybe 6 months to a year, every time there was a show, they announced major records being broken.
Yeah.
Everywhere. I mean, it was happening all the time. I haven't heard shit about a record being broken in a long time.
Well, I think some of the booking is a broken record.
And by the way,
I don't know about record breaking.
And just to make sure we get it out there too, night 2 of SummerSlam, Sunday, August 2nd, 21,731 tickets distributed.
Well, yeah, that's less than Saturday night. But when you think, people don't stay up late at night on Sunday in Minneapolis. Over there in St. Paul now, they're a bunch of hellraisers. But no, I think it's just how many unique, special milestone events can you put up? And a lot of the same people, as we know, go to WrestleMania every year. That's their thing. But
man,
now they're going to start, or somebody's just going to say, I'll make SummerSlam my thing. If they could spend that much money, maybe they'd be going to WrestleMania.
It costs so much money. If you went to WrestleMania, we heard so many negative experiences, not just from wrestlers, but even from fans. Would you want to go months later and spend that kind of money again? Maybe not that kind of in Vegas, but you'll be Minneapolis rich. No, go there and I don't know. It seems like they're not giving anyone an incentive. I mean, this may be the first time in a while where they run a stadium where they could have just run an arena.
Yeah.
And it would have looked great. 25,000 people would have looked great.
Well,
and now they're going to have a giant stage. They
don't have an arena in Minneapolis that'll hold 25,000, but I guarantee you they could rent an arena that holds 20,000 for a lot less than a stadium that holds 70,000 and fucking charge a little bit more for the individual tickets and turn a few people away, and they would have come out better. But they got too big for their britches, I think, on this one.
Well, TKO has hot-shotted the business side of it. Now we're going to see how long it takes them to try to flip this thing and sell it before it comes down to earth. Before they realize that, we can't stay hot forever like we were at that special moment.
You know what they say, Brian? What goes up must come down. What must rise and fall must go on and fucking do all that stuff. That's what they say.
Indeed.
All right, Brian. Well, I guess it's time we head on over to the dark side with John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. How about that? On the dark side, yeah. You don't like my music reference today? They were a very underrated band.
I just didn't like that. Maybe I need to give it another chance, but I just never liked the sound of it.
Oh, come on. Especially when they did the cheap Canadian TV series, Tales from the Dark Side. And these on the dark side. Yeah. All right. Anyway, it's time for Dark Side of the Ring. The first 2 hours of the 3-hour mini-series on TNA and Jeff Jarrett's intertwined story. And they broke the budget this year with the talking heads. We had Dave Sahadi, who's one of the production gurus, Father James Mitchell, the Sinister Minister, Awesome Kong, Jeff and Karen Jarrett, Scott Steiner, Eric Bischoff, Matt and Jeff Hardy, D'Lo Brown, what was presented as Scott D'Amore, but looked possibly like a Scott D'Amore love doll made in Taiwan. Has he had some work done? He looks younger now than he did 20 years ago.
What the fuck is wrong with that guy? And no one's telling him, you look ridiculous, don't leave the house.
Well, I'm not sure what it was exactly, but again, he was 30, 20 years ago, and now he looks kind of like Mason Rook's twin brother.
Yeah, I think he may be having a little bit of a midlife crisis.
No wrinkles. He's got kind of Uncle Dave's tint to his hair. Anyway, a lot of talking heads. But the story was basically, I thought, summed up by Jeff Jarrett at the beginning when he said, I was given the gift of desperation. Because when you think about it, the only time that you ever really want to open a wrestling promotion in the last 25 years or so is if you're fucking desperate. I kind of did the same thing. Well, there's no place to fucking work. I'll open a territory. Holy shit. That ages you quicker than heavy methamphetamine use, I think.
You could have worked anywhere you wanted. You chose to open a territory.
Well, there wasn't any place I wanted to work.
That's different.
Well, I wasn't quite as desperate. Jeff was really desperate. That's why he went national. But the old Memphis footage is nice to see on national television, as well as the pictures of Jeff was a cute blonde-haired kid. I wonder who took those pictures and supplied much of that video. By the way, have I mentioned that people are going to have the opportunity to see more of my photography in the fall, but we'll do the commercial plugs later on. But anyway, and that's they told Jeff's story briefly. As I said, when we talked to Evan Husney about the series when we were previewing it, I would have liked to have seen an hour or two on the Jarrett family history, but that wasn't the dark side. It was successful up until this fucking venture with Jeff's grandmother and his father. But Jeff started out the old-fashioned way. He started working for Teeny, doing merch sales and concessions at the spot shows. I'm sure he was at Dale, Indiana, or Russell Springs, Kentucky, or wherever the fuck. And then they had him refereeing. And I think the deal was they made him graduate high school before he could start doing anything, I think, besides refereeing a little bit. And then they did that angle with Bill Dundee and Buddy Landell in April of 1986, March or April. They did the angle in March. I think he debuted as a wrestler in April. But, you know, at that point, he got in the business the way that a lot of guys got in the business in the territory days when they were teenagers, and they learned from the ground up. And it's just lucky that his dad had one of the last territories left. But I love the angle that they did, which they obviously couldn't flesh out here, but all the fans knew that Jerry Jarrett was blind in one eye for real. And that had been the case for most of his wrestling career, I think, if not all of it. And when he came out to save his son from getting the shit kicked out of him by Dundee and Buddy Landell, they went after Jerry's good eye. And people were screaming, and Eddie Marlin, Jerry's father-in-law, and Jeff's fucking grandfather-in-law came out, and the whole nine. It was intense. And that's why, part of the reason why that run with Dundee and Buddy as a team and working with Lawler and Dutch was the last major sellout at the Coliseum and did the last major business there. Anyhow, by 9 minutes into the program, Jeff was in the WWF doing the country singer, and then They were in 1998 in about 30 seconds, and they pretty much got to the point that the last year or so with Jeff in the WWF, things started to go to shit. Jill had her first bout with breast cancer. Jeff had been friends with Owen Hart, and they were a team at the time that Owen fell. And that last year, as Jeff said, was the beginning of breaking him down. But before I drone on any further, Brian, your thoughts on the initial setup of the thing?
I mean, if Jeff Jarrett had to produce his own documentary, this is exactly what it would be. It's very, 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 very much I don't want to say puff piece, but it's the most rosy picture of everything the way Jeff Jarrett wants it presented.
I can't say they're too far off in presenting it how that it was actually happened, though.
I think one of the important things about Jeff Jarrett's career, and this is where Vince Russo begins to play in, is the fact that the fans never saw him past an upper mid-card guy, and he was pushed harder than anyone took to him. And the fans didn't take to it. It didn't really seem to be working out well in the WWE. And WCW, the same thing. And that led into TNA. And, I don't want to, you're asking just about the initial part here. So I don't want to go into the TNA stuff. But, again, it was very, not that there was bad stuff to bring up, but he wasn't a top wrestling star. And I feel like this almost made it out like he was one of these top guys going back and forth, and he wasn't. I mean, Steve Austin refused to work with him.
Well, yeah. Because Steve Austin made $150 a week in Memphis.
Hey, and that's another thing from Memphis. I thought that should have been, again, it's a pro Jeff Jarrett thing, but how many wrestlers had a problem with him driving around in his brand new sports car that his dad bought him when everyone else couldn't eat? And maybe he shouldn't have done that. And someone should have said, don't drive. Who was it? Was it Jim Crockett that was like, don't drive a better car than...
Well, no, Jim Crockett Sr. always drove an old car because he said, don't drive a nicer car than your fan base. Then the fans, they don't want to see, he didn't want them to see the promoter pulling up in a big Lincoln Continental. Of course, at some points, they saw Jerry Jarrett pulling up in a fucking limousine with Bubba Monroe driving. But I agree. And also, Jeff's initial weakness, weak spot, blind spot, whatever, for Vince Russo is what got him in a lot of this trouble as well. But at the same time, he wouldn't find that out until later on. And there's one thing I want to explain, because I don't think they explained it well in the show here, when Jeff held Vince up to drop the belt to China on the way out.
Oh, you were part of that segment in the show.
Well, I was there that night, and Jeff was saying he was owed like 3 or 4 months worth of money. And people are going to say, what the fuck? How was the WWF that far behind on paying somebody? In those days, you got paid for the pay-per-views 90 days after in other words, if WrestleMania was April 1st, April, May, June, you would get the check around July 1st. And not only that, but the last quarter of merchandise money, whatever that may have been. And so Jeff figured, okay, if I leave, I drop the belt and I go, I've got no leverage. And in those days, Vince could pay you whatever he wanted to pay you for the pay-per-view or anything else.
And respectfully, it wasn't just drop the belt. It was drop the belt to a girl. I know China's
to a girl.
Legend, but
yes.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal at that point in time in 1998 or whatever this was. No, any guy, much less a top guy or somebody that was trying to go somewhere else and be used as a top guy, to get beat by a girl? No, sorry. There was still some logic in the business. So he figured if I do this and go, I'm going to lose 3 pay-per-view payoffs or, whatever. I'll have no leverage and he can do what he wants and the merchandise money. So That was the deal. And he came up with the idea of $100,000. And when Vince said yes, he walked around the building again and came back and said, Vince, I think I need 200. And he got it. But that was also back when it meant something that not only the title lineage wasn't broken when it didn't need to be, except at Shawn Michaels' whims or whatever, but also that they wanted China over and she needed to get over. So it was an investment that Vince made. He was going to pay him somewhere around that to begin with, if he was going to be honest about it, but it just came earlier.
Well, I guess also, I mean, it's not like Vince was past the point of fucking with someone's money if he wanted to, and Jeff was going to WCW and everyone knew it.
Yeah.
So he could have fucked with Jeff's money. I don't blame Jeff for holding up Vince, maybe for doubling what he asked for. I mean, that's a little crazy, but the idea I know I have this money coming to me, just pay me out what I'm owed now so I can move on with my life.
But see, also Vince had, remember, I was sitting there with the table when he did the payoff, the WrestleMania payoffs for Hall and Nash in 96, and they had already gone. And he said, I don't want them to be able to say I fucked them on the way out. And it's like $100,000. I'm like, fuck me all you want to. $100,000? What the? He's gone. He quit. He left. Fuck him. Anyway, but then when Jeff went to WCW and Vince bought WCW, Jeff got fired.
Hey, how much heat was on Jim Ross when that happened? Because he was head of talent relations.
It was a sore spot because the contract happened to end at that same time. And they were in talks about something else, but Jim Ross was, and see, the thing is, Jeff has said, well, JR wasn't going to budge off that figure. Well, JR wasn't going to budge off that figure because Vince wouldn't let him budge off that figure. So it came back to bite Vince a little bit too. JR could budge off figures if Vince said budge off a fucking figure. And that's why Jeff knew that he could get a better deal in WCW, at least for guaranteed money, because Vince, if he wasn't going to pay him X or whatever, he only saw him in a certain spot. But nevertheless, now that was the point where Jeff came home and there's no place to work, not only for him, but for a lot of guys. And again, it was even worse than when I'd started Smoky Mountain, because there were Memphis was gone by that point and everything was gone. So he started talking to Jerry, and a lot of this people noticed that Bob Ryder's name wasn't mentioned. And they conceived the original TNA idea on Bob Ryder's boat when they were on a fishing trip. But again, then you're introducing other characters. I understand they already got 3 hours, but
even
he
the
was
idea,
instrumental.
Though, but even the idea that it was a business model based on weekly pay-per-views at $9.99 or whatever it was, but weekly pay-per-views, and then they were told by their CFO or whoever that, like, whatever the numbers they thought they were, that they were told it wasn't even close to that. Like, all that was left out too.
Well, and that's, again, because they already had one scandal to deal with when they found the financial backer was Health South, and that Richard Scrushy or whatever his name was, their original money backer is fucking crooked and is indicted by the Department of Justice or whatever, and fraud and all that stuff in his real business, to where they pulled the funding. At the same time, they were being victimized by the guy at In Demand, who I think his name was Jay Hossman, who was giving them bogus figures that were inflated on their buy rates, so they thought they had more money coming to them than what they did. But there was some scandal, and again, they didn't have time to go down a side road of true crime, but that he was tied up with people that worked for the WWF that were, it was possible he was giving them false information to try to sabotage them.
But just the idea that the original business model completely failed, that it was...
Well, and the original business model, Jerry Jarrett thought that for $10, and this actually, they were unfortunately, they were too early. Because Jarrett thought for $10, if people could, like the old days when they went to the matches once a week for $5. Well, for $10, if you could buy a ticket, in effect, to see a weekly wrestling show that you kind of like, that you would probably do it. And there was enough wrestling fans that, they could subsist that way.
It would work now.
It would work now, and that's kind of what the Ring of Honor idea was streaming video that I had in 2011 and 12. But Sinclair cheaped that to the point where they all went off the fucking air. And now the idea of, somebody paying $10 a month to stream fucking professional wrestling is not so far-fetched. But nevertheless, timing is everything. But that it was too early at that time. It wasn't going to fly. I think Jerry was smoking the hopium that he could get something established for his son. And I think Jeff had the dream and the motivation that all the Jarretts had of opening and promoting their own towns. And it came about that the business was in too bad a shape by the time that all these things happened. Teeny was successful for 40 fucking years. Jerry was successful for 30 years. The business had grown away from individual people even being able to find money backers and do this right.
But going back to the beginning, the big thing was they still needed TV and they didn't have it. So they just went right to pay-per-views with no TV, so no secondary source to the pay-per-view to establish anything.
Yeah.
Then eventually they got TV and they had to pay for it. I don't even know if that was covered here in this, but they paid for it. And then, Spike, but it took a long while to get there. And, not every...
Well, and let's not jump too far ahead because... the name thing, and again, this is another place where people keep tweeting me, now we see what you meant. TNA. They had people comment on the name, and of course, our friend Vinny Rue jumps in. It was my idea. I came up with it. Tits and ass. Yes, that was his childish contribution. And that not only did they lie to Jerry Jarrett, this was the beginning of one of the things. See, I said it on the show, Vince Russo as a person, as the way he talked about and thought about professional wrestling and the way he presented himself. I know this for a fact from many conversations that we had years after. Jerry Jarrett thought that Vince Russo was offensive to him on a personal basis. He was insulted by this fucking guy. He wasn't as demonstrative as I am, but he probably thought less of him than I do. So imagine what kind of territory that takes in. And they had to lie to Jerry about it. No, it really is total nonstop action. That's just an accident. And when I promoted one of their first house shows here in Louisville and had to go to the cable company and buy advertising, and they say, TNA wrestling, is it some kind of mud stuff, or are they topless? Or it was embarrassing. But this is the mentality of this mental child. And he said his concept, Jerry Jarrett's concept was a wrestling promotion that he could establish for his son. Jeff's concept was a wrestling promotion that would have a little of something for everybody. The lucha, the X division, the heavy, whatever, tag team. And that's where Jeff and I differ on philosophy, but that's an argument that two professionals can have. Okay, should we focus equally on the knockouts and the X division and the heavy and the tag team, or should we lighten up on this, or can we serve all these masters? You can have that conversation. You can't have a conversation with a fucking moron that wants the show to be anything goes. There are no rules. It's an adult version of Glow. And that was his quote. He just wanted to do a fucking wrestling parody.
He had another stupid line, too. It was like, Jerry Jarrett wanted to do 1970 USWA.
Yes.
What?
And they showed the guys dressed up as dicks that they called the Johnsons, and they showed the midget jacking off in the trash can.
Oh, that was what triggered it. That was what it was. I wanted midgets shacking off. He wanted 1970 USWA.
Yes, and also that's one of the other things that offended Jerry Jarrett. I can't imagine what Teenie would have thought. She wouldn't have been able to watch the program that her own family was involved with. But Russo's quote, I wanted to do a midget beating off at a trash can, and Jerry Jarrett wanted to do 1970 USWA. What idiot doesn't realize when he says shit like that is that what Jerry Jarrett, and by the way, it wasn't the USWA in 1970. They didn't have those letters then.
No.
But what Jerry Jarrett booked in 1970 alone sold more tickets than TNA Wrestling has in their entire existence since 2002. And that would be if they charged to get into Orlando when they taped at Universal Studios, which they didn't. It was free. But counting those people, Louisville was a goddamn $200,000 or 200,000 ticket a year town the first year when it popped. Fucking idiot. But again, he's insufferable. But more people allegedly want to watch midgets beating off in trash cans than want to watch a wrestling program when they're watching a wrestling program. And then they showed tape of the midget pulling a gun and starting to shoot security. But Jeff hit him over the head with a guitar and knocked him cold, and he dropped the gun. And that was followed by Russo's comment, people want to be entertained.
You know, it's interesting. The only thing Russo can point to really is success past the WWE period under Vince is like anything that did okay numbers at the time. But the thing he was always terrible at was getting people to actually be transactional and pay for tickets.
Pay for anything.
Or pay for pay-per-views. Yeah. I mean, that's across the board. WCW, TNA, anything else he's done since then. People won't pay for it.
Did you watch those two chickens fucking on the side of the road? Yeah, boy, that was hilarious. Here's a tape of it for $10. Well, fuck you. I've seen it and it ain't worth $10.
Hey, let me flip through the channels. What's this? It's like a fucking adult glow. I think I'll just go to the next fucking channel. If I want to see tits and ass, I'll go to fucking the other channel. Like, what's the
Skinamax or whatever? But
yeah, that was
Jeff wanted.
Yeah, that's right.
Jeff wanted the yin and yang between Jerry Jarrett and Vince Russo, and I'm surprised he didn't get a murder of either yin or yang. So then, like I said, Health South had pulled the funding, and he was indicted for fraud for dirty books. And when Jeff is telling everybody, that's when Dixie Carter revealed that her parents were Texas oil millionaires. And that saved it. Again, it was a zombie type of thing. Jeff was always one step ahead of disaster. And then they got Spike TV. That was 2005. And I've mentioned, I forgot their first slot was Saturday nights at 11 o'clock because I'd never seen the show. That was OVW's slot. If I was watching TV on Saturday nights, I was watching my own show. But this is the thing. When TNA got on Spike and they got the six-sided ring, which, again, that's a philosophical argument you could have had. You could have had legitimate wrestling or Russo's Springer-like stuff in a six-sided ring.
And they tried to make that like that was a Jeff Jarrett invention. AAA was doing that.
It was AAA in Mexico, but that's where he had seen it because he worked Mexico. But the point is, you could have that philosophical discussion on whether the six-sided ring was good or not. A lot of the boys didn't like bumping in it, and I thought it was too hard to get used to and wasn't enough space sometimes. But you can't have an argument about there's a midget drawing a gun and trying to shoot the security in the middle of the six-sided. That's the stupid part.
Especially when the person defending it, their excuse is, it's entertaining.
Yeah. And when Jeff said, I wanted a more sports-oriented look instead of the entertainment, then again, you go to do a quality movie and you hire Ed Wood. But as we know, much of it was Dixie. Then come to find out, after he was able to ingratiate, Jeff was his friend originally, but then he was able to ingratiate himself. And there's subtle hints here that we'll pick up on shortly that he was doing the same thing he always did once he saw Dixie was gullible and susceptible and malleable and suggestible. So Jerry got fed up with Russo and had to deal with the Carters and had buyer's remorse for just this whole idea. And he told me this himself. We were on the phone one day. He couldn't get it through to him that he quit. Right? He's like, I told him I don't want to do this anymore. So he made the appointment in the WWF office with that Oleg Prudius.
Yeah. Nice guy.
Knowing that and had pictures taken so that it would get publicity, so Dixie would get in a fucking snit. And that was kind of his indication, I'm done. That was his way of giving notice. And unfortunately, out of that was the final straw. That's when Jerry and Jeff didn't speak for several years. And it was the Carters in some respect, because now you're like, Jesus Christ, I got to talk to these people now.
Yeah, what was the actual problem with him and the Carters? Was it that they were questioning him on wrestling decisions? Were they questioning him on the money being spent?
I don't know if it was the Carters plural or if it was Dixie. But yeah, coming in like they were putting pressure on, as they said in the program here, in terms of, well, show us something, but also when you've got somebody putting pressure on you to show them something, but also you're making suggestions. That's how we got a Mummy in Smoky Mountain, okay? And you can imagine, I'm sure, what kind of suggestions Dixie might have had, or just the way that she went about it. But the biggest thing was Russo. It was Jerry Jarrett could not coexist with that guy. And the famous quote, reading something Russo wrote was like reading something written by a person on LSD. But then
I'll bet you Mike Boyette could write a better show.
Well, he could have, but I wonder if he's still around.
No way.
Good Lord. Nevertheless, so this is where I think shit really got started, because now Jerry's disgruntled, and he blames Jeff for siding with Russo when Jeff knew that Dixie was siding with Russo, and that's where the money was coming from. And Jerry said, it was more like, fuck it, let's just not do this. So therefore, Jerry and Jeff aren't speaking. Jill's cancer came back. At this point, he had lost, because Teeny died in 1998. Owen died in 1999. Jerry and Jeff stopped speaking in 2000. Was it 4 or 5, whatever it was? Jill got sick again in 2007 and died. And this fucking chaos that he's in, that's what led to the drinking issue. And as Jeff made the point, he didn't take time off. It's wrestling. There is no time off. And I mean, I remember one time I just asked Dusty for a day off to go to a friend's wedding. He said, is he getting mad in Greensboro? I said, no. He said, well, that's where you're going to be that night, baby. Okay.
If I could just say, this is like one of the areas where I think if you have a problem with everything Russo does, you have to see Jeff Jarrett as a giant enabler of him. I mean, the idea that when they started TNA, the first thought was, with his dad there. And again, Jerry Jarrett, I don't know how up on modern wrestling he was, but in terms of ideas and knowing how to create feuds and create just programs and stuff.
He didn't need to book it at that point. He needed to shape it.
But the idea that Jeff said, we need Russo to write the TV. Why? What would have told you in the previous several years that that would have been the way to go with a new company?
Well, but also, while it did happen, the one who said, Jeff said, I need you to write my TV was Russo. So
that is
how
true.
strong was that request?
But again, Jeff brought him in. I mean, again, I have a tough time thinking that Jeff really saw the value in the dicks or the masturbating, gun-toting dwarf in the trash can. Or any of these things. Like the idea that you could see that and defend it or not shoot it down. I think he gave Russo enough rope to, you know,
that's what he said,
to sneak into Dixie's inbox. And, you know, that's, you know, so I think Jeff may have eventually come around on it, but Jeff is as responsible as anyone for Russo being in the wrestling business after WCW.
I can't argue with that. I cannot argue with it. And speaking of Dixie, I thought the best description I've ever heard of her when she was named president of TNA, she was the face of her father's investment. Much like George Goulas became the face of his father's promotion. And as Mitchell said, Jim Mitchell said, she was charming, she was friendly, she didn't know shit. But then things started picking up, and TNA, we've been doing the agent reports. They got prime time. That's when they had gotten on Spike, Dutch had been calling me from summer of 2005 or whatever, and I just didn't want to do anything at that point. I just got free from the WWF. But then as I've said, okay, 2006, the summer. See, that's another thing they didn't cover. They didn't cover Russo being fired in 05 or whatever it was, and being gone. So when I joined in 06 for that period of time, I thought it was a Russo free zone and I was safe. They'd already tried it and it didn't work. I didn't know she was going to bring him back. But they got the Spike slot. They got Kurt Angle. That's as
no
I've
mention
said
of why they got him.
No mention of why they got it. Well, till later on, when, you know, they started talking about the issues that he had.
But they don't bring up the fact that the issues are. Did they say there that that's why WWE let him go?
I don't know whether they explicitly said those words, but gosh, it could be just because I just know that inherently, because they were talking about his problems and that Karen came to be able to try to get him to the show and back successfully. So maybe it was just inferred. I don't know. Let's somebody do some notes on that. But that's at that point, except for the creative, potential looked good. Angle and Joe, that program for the title, did their best pay-per-view number ever. I think it was like 60,000 buys. And of course, as we mentioned, that was Dutch handling the build between those two guys. And then Russo got involved in it later on and repeated it over and over and trashed it up. And then it got down to like 10,000. But they had talent. The knockout division, Awesome Kong, who was great on here. She was great. People say, oh, he hates women's wrestling. Awesome Kong and Gail Kim was tremendous. It was a female Vader, a brutal monster heel against a young, fiery female Ricky Morton-like babyface. That's wrestling, and they could work. You can't do it 6 times on a show with everybody. But they had the knockout division started, which oftentimes in those early days was getting the biggest number on the show. Got Kurt Angle, had the rest of the names that they listed off here, and had primetime television on Spike, and by 2007 would be expanded to 2 hours. So there was potential here. There was they did a video game, and then the company went out of business and never did another one.
No, but there was upward,
shit going on.
Yeah, there was upward potential. It seemed like things were kind of going up for a while.
But then also what you have, meanwhile, the creative, as you mentioned, Russo couldn't convert viewership to anything relating to money. Nobody bought the pay-per-views. Nobody there. They barely ran house shows. And when I promoted that show in Louisville, it was the biggest live gate they'd ever done. And for quite a while after that. And that was 32 grand or some shit. That was the problem. The creative was just because he is an idiot and keeps saying, what they don't realize is I'm writing a television show. Yeah, and that's all you're fucking doing, and it's not a good one, and people stare at it for free, but nobody gets invested.
But they never.
Meanwhile, go ahead.
I was going to say they never point out in here though, like when, like you said, they don't talk about him getting fired that first time. Just when his ideas weren't Jeff's anymore, when he got to Dixie's ear, like when exactly did it happen? That he was unfireable.
It was starting because when they brought him back in 2006, and then as Jeff is overworked, Jill's sick, they're doing creative at his house. Remember when Jeff said that Russo would come to him and say, well, why don't we do this or that? I don't know. Well, Jeff, Dixie wants it. Well, how did he know Dixie wanted it before the guy that owns part of the company, unless he's talking to Dixie first? And as Jeff said, fame doesn't change folks. It reveals folks. Dixie wanted more. Dixie wanted credit. Dixie wanted to be a personality. I've told this story. I told it for the production, but it hit the cutting room floor. But while Dixie was trying to be a champion of the knockouts and, women and I'll lead strong women, there was a bunch of the knockouts rolling their eyes at her because she was on a plane one day from Dallas. Plane was delayed on the way to Orlando. She called ahead from the plane to one of the stooges to make sure that none of the girls were in the makeup chair when she got there so she could immediately go into makeup and go out and take pictures in the impact zone with the belt with the fans. She wasn't going to be on TV. She was taking the knockouts that were going to appear on the show out of the chairs so she could go sit in the front row with the fans, hold the belt, and take pictures. Does that sound like Christine Jarrett to you, or does that sound like fucking Taylor Swift?
It sounds like a little girl whose parents bought her something to keep her occupied. And that was the main goal of it. Just keep Dixie busy. She wants to do it. Even if you buy it, can't get rid of Dixie. Dixie has to be part of the package.
Yeah, and also when Kong said, Taylor Wilde was the girl's name. Blonde girl, was at one point the Knockouts champion. She worked at the Sunglass Hut at the mall in Ontario somewhere. And because she couldn't afford not to. And because, Sahadi told the story that they'd see Nash or some of the other WWE stars, big names, buttering Dixie up, pouring her a drink, said, we're going to kick Vince's ass. And the homegrown guys got shit out of it. And that's...
They didn't bring up Dixie sleeping with talent. What do you think of that?
Well, it's never... What was my comment when they said, did you really send a terrorist or get it blamed for terroristic threatening on Russo? I said, depends on what you mean by terroristic. It's never been proven. That type of thing. There's no photos. But that's, but then also how Awesome Kong said when she came to work, I didn't know who Jeff Jarrett was. I don't really know how Kong got in the wrestling business, and she had only wrestled in Japan, but she came to work for TNA Wrestling and didn't know that it was Jeff Jarrett, and she thought Dixie was like the boss and came from some wrestling background. But anyway, that's the thing, is the problems behind the scene. There was the potential, the time slot, the talent roster, but there was also the guy that started the company is going through multiple kinds of shit, and the woman putting up the money is starting to conspire to take more credit and power or whatever. and the creative is counterproductive to the bottom line. And then you've got Russo said, well, when Dixie had an issue with Jeff, she would come to me. I wonder why. How would you know if, well, Brian, if you're working with a guy you have an issue with, are you going to go to their alleged one of their best friends to complain to them? Or would you think you were going to someone who was a sympathetic ear?
Bingo. Sympathetic like the gardeners right behind me.
I hear that now. And there were people said trying to convince Dixie that Jeff was holding the company back. I wonder who that might be. And there was an element of that with D'Amore too, because when they fired him off the creative team, when they brought Russo back, Dutch told me that they caught D'Amore and a couple of the other ones trying to plan to go to Dixie and take the book away from Jeff. And it's drama. It's bullshit drama.
It affected D'Amore so much he got a new face. So that no one would know he snuck back into the building and tried to steal the company again.
That just proved the people right that said he was two-faced. He came up with another one. And anyway, then all this going on, and a lot of their people's personal issues. Like I've said, I never had a conversation with Dixie Carter. Didn't have any reason to. Didn't need to in the course of doing my job. And whereas one of the guys, I can't remember, said there was always parties after the taping, everybody'd go back to the Doubletree Hotel, go to the bar, they'd have a party or whatever. I think Brian, I was not involved in that. I was not. It's not that I didn't like anybody. And occasionally me and Keith Mitchell, at one time, Dave Sahadi, some of us went over and had a run to Whataburger. But if I've been in that hot fucking sticky Orlando goddamn amusement park for 10 hours, 12 hours at a TV taping or a pay-per-view, I went back to the hotel and either got room service or fixed my own at Cornette's Grill and watched my DVD player and the air conditioning in my underwear. That's how I went out and had fun after the fucking tapings. So I was not aware of many people's personal fucking drama. But Karen finally sat down and talked about it. And I knew something was up between them when Karen started with Kurt on TV. And that's the thing with Kurt's issues. He needed help. And she, even though they were separated, they had the kid or whatever, she was trying to help. I enjoyed working with her because she had never, to my knowledge, been involved in wrestling before and just became a great heel performer. And she could cut fucking promos and she had the facial expressions and the body language. So I loved all that. But then when she ended up having enough of, the trials and tribulations of being on the road with this shit, doing the TVs and taking care of Kurt, when she kind of said, I don't want to do this anymore and filed for divorce, then, we lost that. Nice personality on the show. But when she and Jeff started getting together, Karen said that Russo and Dixie and Jeff all knew that she and Kurt were split. Kurt was publicly, we knew this in the locker room because we knew that she and Karen, we knew Kurt and Karen were split because Kurt was seeing that Raka Khan imbecile.
That's right.
That tried to sue me, Home Depot, and Dan Rather, and whoever the fuck else it was.
The president.
She was the president. She was one of the knockouts, and he was seeing her. And that a couple of times led to some interoffice strife, but she wasn't completely crazy that we knew at that point, but there were signs. So with Kurt seeing one of the girls on the roster, Jeff was seeing Karen away from work. Then Jeff said that everybody knew but Dixie. But how
Is there any truth to the story that I've always heard that Dixie had allegedly asked Jeff Jarrett if he was in a relationship with Karen and he had denied it, and that's why she was so upset when she found out that they were? Did you hear that at all?
Well, I heard, that's what I heard at the time, that Dixie found out that Jeff and Karen were together, and Jeff had said they weren't, but at one point they weren't. So I don't know at what point he said that. But the whole goddamn thing is that, and again, Russo even said Dixie yelled at him for not telling her about it. And it got on Bubba the Love Splooge's radio show. But what earth-shaking difference should it have made to Dixie Carter, except for the opportunity that Jeff handed her a rope that she could hang him with? Kurt Angle they've not only got divorce proceedings going on, but Kurt Angle is openly seeing another one of the talents on the roster at the matches. So why is it bad for Jeff Jarrett to be having a private relationship with the soon-to-be ex-wife of the same person that's seeing one of the other members of the roster, to the point where he, even though he owns part of the company and is the driving force behind it, you got to go. And Kurt, and nobody was complaining about it at that point. Kurt initially was pissed when he heard about it, but Kurt had a lot of things going on where his emotions were taking a roller coaster ride at that point. So that was the point. Karen said that Jeff thought that Dixie would be happy for him because after Jill, he was able to fall in love with somebody else. And Dixie's response was to remove him as the executive producer and a head of creative because they got a quote from Dixie from an interview she'd done years ago. He was in a personal situation that affected the company. How did it affect the company?
It was either she wanted to fuck Jeff or she wanted to push Jeff out and take his spot and take control. Those are the two options.
Well, and I would go for the latter rather than the former. Although again, Jerry Jarrett was convinced until his dying day that Russo was fucking Dixie is the only reason why Dixie would tolerate him. And he wouldn't believe me, but I told him, I said, no, I can promise you. I've known him for a long time, and that's one thing he probably wouldn't have the guts to do. So then, September 2009, Jeff goes home. They fire Dutch within days. They let Savio Vega and Road Dogg go as agents. I made one more taping. Showed up, shook Vince Russo's hand, said the team is in need. Let's forget our personal issues. And then they called me up and fired me several days later on the phone. And Dixie gave Russo total creative control. Dave Sahadi said for the first time he had nobody policing his work. D'Lo Brown said, well, then you'll have 5 minutes of wrestling in a 120-minute program. And Russo said, well, I just always did my own thing anyway. It didn't really make a difference that Jeff wasn't there. Oh, my God. Then Dixie had the gall to call Jeff in on the meeting with Hulk Hogan because she knew that she was in over her head and she didn't know what she was doing and she couldn't pull it off. But when they walk into the meeting, there's Eric Bischoff there, which Jeff was not prepared for because he was supposed to be there. But now we know with hindsight, because of Hogan's revelations, that Bischoff was setting that up to get Hogan a fucking job because he needed the money after all the shit that he'd been through. And they were like, well, fuck, we can do this again with somebody else's money. We get to Hulkster a payoff. If it works, it works. If not, did they really give a shit? And they're in game. More drama came because Jeff knew Hulk, but he also said he'd worked with Bischoff, but he knew that both of them knew nothing about TNA. And at the same point, Hulk hated Russo too and wanted Bischoff in to handle his shit because, as Bischoff said, they knew that Russo was a fraud. What a goddamn soap opera. Bischoff saw Dixie was running shit now and said and admitted that there was a strained relationship between her and Jeff. You could tell. So he knew he was able to take advantage of it because the one with the money is not the one that's smart to the business. And Dixie thought she had accomplished the biggest thing in the world by signing Hulk Hogan 15 years too late. And that's just the first 2 hours.
Well, there's still a lot more that they kind of need to cover as they tell the rest of the story.
They're going to have to squeeze some in. And I don't even know where Billy Corgan's going to come into this.
Right? That's the one I want to see. That's the one I want to see. Yeah.
But think about this, though. Did any of the fans, did any of the newsletters or the journalists, did us, well, we weren't doing this then, but I had my private opinions. Did anybody think that it was going to work when Hogan and Bischoff went to TNA? Or as I recall, was it that everybody was saying it's going to turn into the Old Timers Tour, the Friends of Hogan? They're going to kill this thing deader than 4 o'clock and make off with all of Dixie's money. Wasn't that the prevailing opinion everywhere?
Correct me if I'm wrong, because this is a long time ago, but this was when Hogan first came in. Was that when they did the first ever Monday night show head-to-head with Raw?
Yes, they went head-to-head. And they went head-to-head for what, 2 months or so until they got shellacked to the point where they had to slink back off.
The first week was the one I remember because that was what kind of revealed what was coming next. Right? Were the Nasty Boys on that show, or am I thinking of something it was just all of a sudden?
It probably was, but yeah, it was the Hogan retirement tour, and that was their big rating also. That would they got it to 2 million people on Curiosity, and then were crushed quickly after. And they took it on the road, which added expense. Everything that Bischoff called to do theoretically was something that would have worked and possibly did even work when it was WCW and the WWF. What he couldn't understand was, because he didn't follow history enough, that even though when he took WCW over, it was in complete shit shape, they still had a reputation. They still had an audience based on the 80s and the NWA fans and the Southern fans and the people who watched it when it was good. And they were willing to still stick around at that point till they could see something again. TNA didn't have the reputation. TNA didn't have the goddamn goodwill for years and years. TNA was not ready to compete at that level. So when they went head to head, when they took it on the road, they got their shit kicked in.
Well, like I said, it's fun hearing some of this stuff. I thought D'Lo Brown was great.
I love D'Lo.
I thought it was a little bit like a puff piece for Jeff at times and a complete hit piece of Dixie. Not that it wasn't warranted, but fuck, I completely understand why she did not want to be interviewed for this thing. She would have been completely embarrassed.
Well, I'm trying to think of anybody that would say, I mean, it was Matt Hardy that said, hey, I can't say anything bad about her because she put up the money and saved the company. And of course, they got to do their broken shit. But what else? Who else is going to say anything good about Dixie unless they've never met her or weren't involved in this whole thing?
You're not completely wrong. I know a few people that like her, and none of them are. They've done things in wrestling, and none of them are from wrestling or did anything else in wrestling, or it's a limited audience of people that like Dixie, and I think even the people that like her know that she was in over her head and never really had any kind of understanding at all about wrestling, or certainly not for wrestling TV or personnel decisions, or really any talent. I mean, she had a PR agency.
Come to think of it, kick her off a fucking cliff. Why don't we?
No, I mean, just, It is what it is. And yeah, I've been waiting a long time for a definitive and a real deep dive into the chaos of TNA in book form or documentary form. I'm still waiting, but there were some interesting stories in this.
Well, it also part of it, the dark side of Jeff's eventual redemption in his personal life.
The ominous music that they have to play during everything, and everything is shot to look dark because it's the dark side. And man, those reenactments have really run its course, haven't they? I mean, come on. They had someone at one point as Jerry Jarrett. I swear to God, it looked like Tony Khan. Like, it just didn't look anything like Jerry Jarrett.
I thought one of the Jerry Jarretts looked like Tony Fall.
Well, yeah.
But nevertheless, we are going to find out how all this gets tied up next week. But nevertheless, speaking of something stupid that WWE can't match, we'll be back here next week with the conclusion of this Dark Side of the Ring trilogy and all kinds of other stuff. Won't we, young man?
That's right. And there's pay-per-views just around the corner. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming up. And also Unreal, the WWE documentary series.
Oh, Christ.
Not documentary, because it's a bullshit show, but we'll have plenty to say about that, too. And
that's coming back.
Yeah, July 21st, I want to say. I mean, it's right around the corner.
They're just around the corner. There's a rainbow in the sky. So let's have another cup of coffee and let's have another piece of pie.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty. Well, we'll be here to cover it. When news breaks, we fix it. You know our motto. And until then, folks, in parting, besides the obligatory love, peace, and soul, thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody.